So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like it's an interesting thing. It's very hard to describe what it means to be Somali and what it means to be American, but it's like a cultural fusion. It's kind of like the bananas and rice. You know, people don't really see, like, you know, it's you know, people don't think, oh, you can eat bananas with rice, but that's what it's like to be Somali and American. It's like that combination of banana and rice, but you're gonna get what I mean.
Somalis are not black. Let me explain why. Looking at me right now, chat, am I black? I'm literally brown. I'm literally brown, bro. Think about it as well. Somalis are Arabs. We're in the Arab leagues. We speak the Arab language. We eat the Arab food. Bro, think about it like this, bro. If a whole community doesn't regard themselves as black, we can't be black, bro. We literally can't be black, bro.
Black is just a social construct. Do not insult me or my ancestors by calling me black, okay? When the first European came to Somalia, they called us Caucasian, dark Caucasians. My hair is different, nose different, facial structure different, even voice.
We are Somalis, not black. There, I said it. Alright, everyone is keep asking, why don't Somalis want to identify as black? It's simple. The term black was never a word to begin with. Yeah. The term black, it didn't come from Africa. It came from America. Hello. Right? It was designed to separate slaves from Europeans. It was not designed to celebrate identity. It was to control it. Yeah.
I don't care who said first, but we are not black. We are Somalis, we are not black. I don't know how to explain you guys this. This is like 5 years we are fighting about this topic. Let's change it.
So Ethiopians, right? You guys how do you view like other countries in Africa, like a Somalia or like a Kenya?
So it's not a good thing that I'm mentioning it because we say African people. If it's Uganda, if it's South Africa, we're just gonna call them African. Oh, he's from Africa. It's not a good thing, but you know, yeah. I swear.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Wow. All right, guys. Most High bless to all of you out there. Thank you all so much for tuning in with me. It's been a struggle, but the struggle is real, guys. I made it. This is your girl Neftali. Welcome to Neftali's new school of thought. And we're getting ready to have some fun tonight, right? Let's get into it. We're not Somalis. We're Somalians. We're not black. So, you know, this has been a very trending topic with the Somalians. They've been coming out, you know, differentiating themselves from black people for a while. And us as the, you know, black Hebrew Israelites, right? Us as the people of, you know, we say we are the Hamites. We have to look into this to see why they're saying what they're saying. And, you know, looking at these clips, looking at these videos, they say that they're not black, and they're actually correct. They're not black. You know, they have a different culture. They have a different heritage. And tonight we're going to break that down. We're going to actually look into it, dig into it, look into their history, look into the genetics, look into all of that. And actually looking into that actually proves more that we are the children of Shem by looking into their history. It's pretty interesting how that works. But I'm going to look into the chat and see who we have with us. Thank you all so much for coming out with me tonight. Again, I am Neftali, and this is a new school of thought. So what we got here? All right. Most High bless to my girl right here, Alaya Shay B. Beth Zayawan. Love the name. Most High bless to you. DS XT6ZM, most High bless to you. Those of you out there, please make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, guys. I've been doing this for a while. You know, I'm trying to get these views up. I need you all's help with liking the video, sharing the video. I'm trying to get to 5K. Let's help your girl get to 5K. I've been stuck at about 3K for a while. I want to put the work in, put the time in, but All right, so let's get into it. What am I talking about, right? So we just looked at that clip, had a little fun. Most High bless to you, Just Tia. Thanks for tuning in. Just had a little fun, laughing at them, bananas and rice. But if I need, I'm gonna play it again a little later. But let me get into my presentation. I got a presentation for you guys. You know how we get down over here. But in the meantime, let me pull this up 1 second. Oh, can you guys? I'm sorry, I was talking. I don't know if you guys heard me. Don't know. I think I might have put myself down. Just 1 second. But like I was saying, though, according to a lot of us, like I said, I don't know if you guys heard me or not, so I'm gonna repeat myself again. But according to history, a lot of us Black people, we look at the way our history has been removed, right? It's been discontinued, as the Bible says. So we don't really have our history, and we're trying to dig and rebuild our history. So a lot of what we do is that we're looking at everything, looking at what the so-called white people are doing. They claim all the white people, they claim all the so-called Caucasians as their people. So we look at it the same way. It's like, well, we'll claim all the Black people, or the so-called Black people, or of everybody that's from the so-called African continent, and those are our people. Well, that's actually not true, and we're actually going to dig into that and see why that's not true, and then how we've been excluded from this joke that we've been a part of. These people have actually had this joke. And I don't know if you saw the young lady in the clip when she was like, well, we call them Africans, but we don't call ourselves Africans. And they only become Africans when it's befitting to them. When it's not benefiting to them, then they're Somalians, or they're Ethiopians, or they're Eritreans. It's only a designated group of them that do that. And we're going to talk about why they do that in just a second. So let me get this together. There we go. Let me share my screen. All right. So I have a presentation for you guys, and we're going to talk about why Somalians say they're not Black, why Ethiopians say it, why do they say this? A lot of the times we like to blame the so-called white man for a lot of things, but actually it's not always them. We have to dig in deep to we have to dig into our history and dig into other people's histories, because not everybody's going to share it. There is like a undercover agenda that we're a part of that we don't know anything about. So let's talk about it. We're not Black. We are Somalians. We're not Africans. We are Ethiopians, the Hamitic Cushites in Africa. Right there. We're talking about the Hamitic Cushites. Okay, I'm always talking about the Canaanites. I got to give a big up to the girl Ilhan Omar, because what she did was she motivated me to do something that I've been meaning to do for a while, and that's to talk about the Hamites. I always talk about the Canaanites. I haven't really been talking about the other ones, the Hamites, who they are and where they can be found. Because if we're not so-called Black Americans or some in the diaspora, if we're not the so-called Hamites, then who is? Because there are Hamites in Africa, okay? The Bible says so. So let's talk about them. So all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Let's get started. It's common for some Somalis to state that they are ethnically Somali, not Black, reflecting the complex interplay of identity that includes strong Arab, Islamic, and distinct cultural heritage. So this is according to AI. AI say it's common for them to state that. What they're saying is that they have they have a background, they have a history, not just Black. Right? They say, oh, well, we say this because we're Somalians. We have a history. We're not just Black. You're not just going to label us Black like you, Black Americans, because you don't know where you come from, but we know where we come from, right? Which is true, but that's not all it is. It's not that innocent. They say here, this is according to AI. I didn't do anything special, but I want you guys to pay attention. It says ethnic and cultural identity. Somalis are a Cushitic ethnic group. So right there off the bat, they tell you that the Somalis are Cushites. It says a group native to the Horn of Africa, distinguished by a unique clan system. It says the Somali language and Sunni Islamic beliefs, they primarily identified by this specific ethnic and national heritage, rather than a broad racial category used in a Western context. So right there, they're letting us know that they say that they are the Cushites of the Bible. Okay. Now, nobody, as much as they want to say, that we Black Americans are Ham and all of that, I want to talk about why do they say they're Cush, but meanwhile want to disassociate themselves with us if we're supposed to be their fellow brethren. We're supposed to be Hamites too, right? According to the so-called Christian church, right? But let's just keep digging. Let's just keep going in. We're just getting started. So let's see what Somalis teach and talk about. See, one thing about us Black Americans, again, we always have our arms wide open. We're ready to, we're such a loving people, ready to embrace and hold on to different cultures and different groups. But these people look at us and they use us. So let's talk about how they think of us. So this was an article by the Echo, an Augsburg University student produced newspaper. So let's see what they say. They say the majority of Somalis, both at home and in the diaspora, believe that they are no longer Black. Some like to simply identify as Somali. They often don't see themselves as a part of the Black struggle. One thing we have to remember, the Somalians were never enslaved. I repeat, the Somalians were never enslaved. I know we think everybody's been enslaved. Everybody's story is not our story. That's what makes us unique. So the Somalis never been enslaved. So they say they telling us right here, they don't see themselves as a part of the Black struggle. Others see themselves as Arab or other identities that would make them not Black Africans. So we would look at this and say that that's self-hatred because we see that in ourselves. So we look at ourselves and say, well, the reason why they think that is because of, like the Hutus and the Tutsis, for instance. They, looked at themselves different, but they were pretty much the same exact people. But that's not the case in this situation, and we're going to look into that a little further. So I said, not only that, but there is also a distaste for Black people. So they don't even like us, okay? They have a distaste for us due to a narrative that has been passed on for generations and amplified in America. It says Black means bad. We use Somali Limo as an excuse to exclude others. So we wonder why, like we look at these different videos and all that kind of stuff, they are always, we watching them right now, we see them. They're separate. They have separate communities. They don't have anything to do with us. They don't try to help us. They don't try to build with us. They keep themselves completely separate, okay? And it's a reason why. And they say this is the most visible in our interactions with the African American Black community. We perpetuate stereotypes about the community, which in turn hurts us as well. So this person here is clearly somebody that's a Somalian American who's calling out their people. They say anti-Blackness is present both in the diaspora and at home. So they're saying they got anti-Blackness here And so right now we're seeing that these people are prejudiced to us Black people. They say, as Somali Americans, we have seen and encountered the explicit anti-Blackness expressed by our parents, family members, and friends. So this is all history that's passed down. They make sure they let them know, hey, don't deal with these Black folks. They said our younger generation has sat too comfortably, rightly blaming others. So a lot of people like to blame, like I said, the so-called white man, they say here the Indians and the Arabs, for the reason for why they think the way they think. But one thing that I find very interesting is nobody ever has this feelings or these emotions for other so-called white people. There's never a stigma. They're never stigmatized. Nobody ever looks at them and frown up at them for what they do. They don't stereotype them. They embrace them individually and say, hey, well, I don't know that. You can't judge everybody based off of what one person or two people do. But as you see here, they like to stigmatize the whole entire Black race. They say, for being anti-Black and hasn't checked our people. We didn't speak up as we heard family members say things like, don't be friends with Maddo. So they have a name for us. So while we being called the N-word, we also are being called Maddos. They're gangsters. They say we were silent as they perpetuated stereotypes about a whole group of people being dangerous, poor, and this is my favorite word, is lazy. And we hear other groups, in our communities, that other people, within our diaspora that use that term against us as lazy and things like that. But they have the nerve to call us lazy. Now, the one thing that I think is interesting is it says Somalians are not Black people, but make sure to manipulate Black people for resources. Whenever they're ready, when they come over here, they make sure they use that Amendment 13, be able to come over here that our ancestors fought for, right? And they also make sure to check the black box, okay, to make sure they get there. Since we're so lazy, they make sure that they check the black box because these people are overwhelmingly on food stamps or some form of welfare. It says it is common for Somalis to state that they are ethnically Somali, not Black. So that's AI, but they say, yes, Somalis in America are often identified as Black on official forms and surveys. So again, even though they like to sit up here and talk all this stuff about, hey, we're not Black, but they make sure they check that black box, okay? And that black box is checked for, and it's only when it's for something that benefits them. If the Somalis are doing something that is for Somalians, that benefits Somalians, then they're Somalians. But when it's something that they need, if it's something that's bad, then they're Black. You know what I'm saying? Which hurts us. So right here, it says, yes, Somalis in America often identify as Black in official forms and surveys, but ethnic identity as Somali is is a primary, and they sometimes find racial categories, Black or white, don't fully capture their experience as a distinct, here it is, Cushitic ethnic group. There they said it again. So they make sure they let us know that these people go based off of being Cushitic. The Bible, all right? But I got here that the Somalians are the true welfare queens. It says, while the U.S. national figures vary, studies of Somali households in Minnesota show high welfare use, around 81% consuming some form of benefit, food stamps, Medicaid, cash, aid, TANF, you name it. SSI, they said overall 81%. So if you do out of 100, 81% out of 100 is an overwhelmingly majority. They got the nerve or the audacity to call us lazy. But you're over here, and then, they always talk about per capita in the Black community, trying to say that we're on welfare so bad. Oh, per capita, the Black community, the Black race is on welfare, and they try to make the Black woman the face of welfare. Meanwhile, we got this group, these Somalians, these Ethiopians, all these other groups coming in here, checking the black box, and they're adding to our numbers and making us look bad. And it really hurts the so-called us Black women, okay? Because we're the ones that are stigmatized with this. But look here, 81%, and they compared them to the Native American households. The Native Americans are not even receiving all of that. They're down here at 21%. And then they got the nerve to be a bunch of frauds. But I'm not even going to, they are frauds. And I'm not even going to dig into all that other stuff because I have a whole nother, thing to, I have other things that I'm going to be bringing out. We're going to be talking about their heritage and their background, about the Cushites. Let's talk about the Cushites. So right here, when you go to Wikipedia and a simple Google search of who the Somalians are, it immediately tells you. I found this very interesting. I'm sorry, my mouse isn't even really working. It tells you that, come on, mouse. The Somalians are a Cushitic ethnic group. So there is something called a Cushitic ethnic group. If you guys knew about this Cushitic ethnic group, tell me, because I didn't know that there was this much information available for the Cushites, okay? It kills me how they get up here and they try to act like they have no idea where the Egyptians went. They act like they have no idea about nothing with the Bible, but it's tons of information out here about all these groups. So they say the East Cushitic Somali language is the shared mother tongue of the ethnic Somalis, which is part of the Cushitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic language family. They said, according to most scholars, the ancient land of Punt and its native inhabitants form part of the ethnogenesis of the Somali people. So like I said, we always look at ourselves as if everybody's like us. That's not true. Everybody hasn't been discontinued from their heritage. That's why we're a peculiar people. These people have their heritage and it's been preserved, and they have continued to preserve and pass down their heritage and their culture and their customs to each other. And that's why they make sure they stand loud and proud and say, hey, no. We're Cushites. And they're proud of it. Not ashamed. So let's talk about the land of Punt really quick. So this is just from Wikipedia, nothing extraordinary. Not Put, but Punt, excuse me. This is the land of Punt, not Put, excuse me. It says the land of Punt was an ancient kingdom known from the ancient Egyptian trade records. It produced and exported gold, aromatic resins, blackwood, ebony, ivory, and wild animals. Recent evidence locates in the northwestern Eritrea. It is possible that it includes or corresponds to Apon, as later known by the ancient Greeks, while some biblical scholars have identified it with the biblical land of Put or Havilah. So right there, it lets us know that the Bible talks about this location. There is actual writings from the Egyptians talking about this, and they also had interactions with the ancient Greeks. So none of this is just hearsay. None of this is just based off of emotions. None of this is based off of feelings or I think. No, this is real. This is real history here that these people actually still have, and it's been preserved. It's very interesting how school has left this out. Everybody talks about the Egyptians, but nobody talks about this amazing kingdom that the Cushites had, because they want to keep the Bible as if there's nothing out there to support the Bible, but there's tons of information and these people are still living on. But what I also find is that, hey, they're not going to let us in on it either. They're not going to tell us. They keep all this stuff to themselves. But we're going to figure out, we're going to look into it and see why. But right here, they tell you where they're located. They're located in the Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and northern Somalia and Somaliland in the Horn of Africa. Okay, so they're letting you know right there where these people are located. But let's keep going. So when you look at the Cushitic people of Africa, like I said, we look at Tanzania. Let me go back here. Let me zoom in. If you just Google Tanzania, like I just Googled Somalians, it'll tell you right here. Many important hominid fossils have been found in Tanzania in the Stone Bronze Age. Prehistoric migrations to Tanzania included Southern Cushitic speakers. Eastern Cushitic people moved to Tanzania. So they're letting you know right there, Tanzania has the Cushites. They tell you here in Kenya. We keep going, you keep reading. It tells you down here that they had the Cushitic speakers who first settled in the region in Kenya. And then they tell you here in Ethiopia that they are Semitic Cushitic. All right, now, that's not a coincidence. This is actually these people. They're actual, it tells us. Let's keep going. So who are the Cushites? So the exact ethnogenesis Cushitic people is still being researched. However, many Cushites, the Cushitic populations are E1B1B. E1B1B. Save that in your minds, ladies and gentlemen, that E1B1B, because that is actually that is a genetic marker. That is a genetic stamp that's going to differentiate these people from who we are. And that's why they get up here and they say so boldly and proud in our faces, we're not the same people, because we're not. And it's okay. We're not ashamed. But the Cushites had E1B1B. They found the Cushites' kingdoms. They found the Cushitic people's writings. They have their languages. They have their burial sites. They have their DNA markers. They have it. And guess what? It doesn't link back to us so-called Black Americans or so-called Sub-Saharan or Negroes. It links to who? The East Africans. And then we'll also see that it links to the North Africans. But let's just keep going. So it says the Cushitic people are a grouping of people who are primarily indigenous to where? Northeast Africa and the Horn of Africa. So up here in this North Africa, Northern African region and the Horn of Africa is where you'll find the Cushites. Notice how they don't mention anything about the southern or the western portion of Africa being anything with the Cushites. They say, the peoples of substantial Cushitic ancestry and native speakers of Cushitic languages are primarily found in the Horn of Africa, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Nile Valley, Sudan, and Egypt. They also say Tanzania and Kenya. And guess what? We saw that when we Googled, you Google Tanzania, you Google these places, they'll tell you they're Cushitic. No questions asked. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't say, hey, are these people Cushitic? It just tells you. All right. So let's talk about the history of the Cushites, because these people actually they were very powerful people. It tells you the Cushites were a powerful force for thousands of years in what is now Sudan. So in Sudan, they actually had pyramids. They actually had a huge, powerful kingdom. They said building the distinctive civilization south of Egypt. So their brother was Mitzrayim, and the Hamites all linked together, and they build together and they work together. So while Mitzrayim was working Egypt, Sudan, or the Cushites were working in the south. They all were working together. They all coexisted together. These people, a lot of people want to act like there's no real history in the Bible, like the Bible is making up lies. No, the Bible is the origin story. And right here it tells us Ethiopians, Cushites. It says the ancient source used terms like Cushites, Cushite, or Ethiopian to describe the dark-skinned African peoples of this region, though these terms referred broadly to a diverse multi-ethnic culture zone rather than a single group. They founded royal dynasties, built monumental architecture, and gained renown for their craftsmanship in pottery, metalwork, and faience. They emerged from indigenous communities around Kema, from where they initially expanded their social and political institutions. Over centuries, the Cushites shaped a civilization that rivaled Egypt. So again, here we are in school, we're learning about the Egyptians, but nobody talks about the Cushites. Interesting, huh? That's pretty interesting how they don't talk about the Cushites. The Cushites had just as big of a civilization that rivaled Egypt. Just as big, just as prosperous. But let's just keep going. So the kingdom of Kush began in modern day Iraq, not Africa. Okay, let's make sure we have to reorganize our thoughts. We have to reprogram our minds, because these people have been teaching us lies. And the reason why I mention this is because everybody wants to say that Africa is the land of Ham. But remember, according to Genesis 10, it says, and the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim put in Canaan, and the sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Septa, Raama, Sabekta, and the sons of Raama, Sheba, and Dedan. And it says, and what Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it was said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Iraq, Akkad, Calneh, and the land of Shinar. And where was the land of Shinar? Iraq, Iran, over there in that region. So Cush did not originate. That's from the Bible in Africa. And we also have other sources to showcase that they actually built other empires in other locations. We'll get to that in just a second. But remember, just because the Cushites are in Africa does not mean that's where they originated. We see that from the Bible. So let's talk about the kingdom of Cush a little bit more, because this was a very powerful nation. As much as you guys sat down and learned about, as much as we have sat down and we learned about these people, okay, we never really was taught. You know, they never taught us about them. We learned about the Egyptians, you learned about the Greeks, you learned about the Romans, but you missed the Cushites. Why? Because it's an agenda. So the kingdom of Cush, also known as the Cushite Empire, also simply Cush, was an ancient kingdom in Nubia. So we hear a lot of our people, right, so-called Black Americans, because we don't have an identity, right? So a lot of us are, you know, utilizing their history because we don't know any better. But we're learning, we're waking up, and people like myself and you guys are going to share this information to each other so that we will stop appropriating their culture, because they make fun of us because they say, hey, you're not us. This is our history. But guess what, boo-boo? We got a history too. And we're learning it, and they don't want us to learn it. They're all working together to keep us in the dark. But like I said, the Most High said knowledge is going to increase in the last days. And as you see, we're digging in and we're digging deep and we're learning. So it says the region of Nubia was an early cradle of civilization, producing several complex societies that engaged in trade and industry. The city-state of Kerma emerged as the dominant political force between 2450 and 1450 BC. They control the Nile Valley between the first and the fourth cataracts, an area as large as Egypt. The Egyptians were the first to identify Kerma as Cush. So in the past, they were called Kerma, but the Egyptians called them Cush, probably from the indigenous ethnonym Kasu. Over the next several centuries, the two civilizations engaged in intermittent warfare, trade, cultural exchange. It says much of Nubia came under Egyptian rule, so they ruled over Egypt. And then eventually, what happened? The Cushites began to rule they actually ruled on the Egyptians' throne as well. So right here, this is an actual image of what the Cushites look like. So that's why a lot of us, you know, so-called Black people, were so quick to say that we were the Cushites. We were the Nubians because, you know, they mimic us. They were dark, you know, and then we look at the agenda and say, hey, they don't want us to know that Black people actually ruled in Egypt. They don't want us to know. They're trying to keep that in the dark. Well, no, it's just keeping us in the dark. These people, as you see, AI just kept throwing in my face how these people were Cushites. AI kept, you just look into Kenya, you look into, just Google Somali. They tell you they're the Cushites. The only people that are in the dark is us, so-called Black Americans. So us are the diaspora. These other groups know who they are, okay? And they are and trust me, they make sure you know. If you're looking for it, it's there. But anyway, let's keep going. So just give you a little bit more history about the Cushites who ruled in Egypt. Right here we have the Pharaoh Taharka. Right there, he ruled on the 25th dynasty. So he actually did rule in as a pharaoh. The Cushites ruled in Egypt. They had an empire that rivaled Egypt. They were trading with the Greeks. They were trading with the Romans. They were traveling. They weren't just limited. They weren't just starving. They weren't just living in mud huts. These people actually had a civilization that was just as huge, or probably even bigger, than Egypt. Now, why do I keep emphasizing that? Because the reason why I keep making a big point of this is because they want to sit here and try to make it like these people, like everybody was enslaved in Africa and like nobody had any civilizations, when the Somalians, the Eritreans, the Tanzanians, the Kenyans, all of these people actually had a huge powerful kingdoms. And they also enslaved our people. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But the main reason why I mention it again is because these people look at you and say, we're not you. We have a history. As you saw in that video, and I'm going to play it again, they tell us really quick, we're not you. We weren't enslaved. We had a kingdom. We were civilized. We weren't just slaves. We had you as slaves. But anyway, let's just keep going. So here's an image of the Cushites on the walls, the pyramid walls of Egypt. You know, this is what they look like. So I thought this was pretty interesting here. I'm getting ready to get into some much more deep things here. I want you guys to really pay attention to this right here. So the Catholic Church are the ones that are supposed to be the progenitors of the so-called Christianity, right? They're the ones that are supposed to have brought Christianity. And the Catholic churches are the ones who taught us and taught Christians to pass down that we were the Hamites. But think about it. They always want to say that Ham was cursed, or depending on which doctrine, Canaan was cursed, and he was cursed to be servants. But actually, they always think that Ham was cursed to be a servant. But let's look at what the Catholic Encyclopedia actually had to say about the Hamites. Based on the historical Catholic literature, specifically the Catholic Encyclopedia of 1908 edition, the Hamites, descendant of Ham, are defined as the progenitors of the 4 great families enumerated in Genesis 10:6 through 20, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. What did they call them? The 4 great families. Why would they call Ham the 4 great families? Why would they call Ham the 4 great families? This is right here. I didn't make this up. This is from the Catholic Encyclopedia. This is back in 1908. They called them the 4 great families. It says, according to these traditional Catholic sources, the Hamites were dispersed over a vast territory, including Africa, the Cushites, Arabia, Africa, Mitzrayim, Egypt, and Put, Libya. Then they say they also were in Asia, Canaan, Canaanites, and various tribes in Arabia. So they're telling you right here that the Asians were Canaanites. They're telling you right here that the Arabians were Canaanites, and they were in the valleys of the Euphrates and the Tigris. This is according to the Catholic Encyclopedia. Again, there is a joke. We're the butt of the joke. They want you to think they taught us. Because this is something that I have to be upset about with my own people, because like I said, I've been teaching this for a while now, and I noticed something. Black people don't want to not be Ham. And Black people don't want other groups to be Ham. They don't want them to be Ham. They think that Ham is cursed. These people told us that Ham was cursed, but that is not even biblical. That's not even biblical. You believe in what they said. They just told you that. They told us that. But when you actually read the Bible, the 4 great families, the Hamites are the ones that built everything. Who was the one that kept going into captivity? Was the Israelites. Those were the ones who kept being the slaves. Deuteronomy 28, the curses. The Hamites weren't cursed, because if they were, let's just say, according to what it said about, Noah cursing Canaan, he couldn't even probably do his job because the doggone children of Israel kept going into captivity. He couldn't even probably be a servant because our ancestors kept going into captivity. They kept doing wrong. So the thing is why wouldn't they all want to band together to make sure you do wrong so they won't be the lower class? They don't want to see you grow. They don't want to see us come up, because why? Why they don't want to see us come up? Because then they go down. It only makes sense. But what I don't understand is why my people continue to want to teach that Ham were these cursed people that were servants when they were not. And as you see here, the Catholics so boldly in our face said that they were the first. They were the 4 great families. Now you may say, well, Neff, that was back in 1908. They don't think that now. Maybe they didn't. Oh, they don't teach that now. Yeah, they still teach it now. Here it is right here. I'm in the daily readings with Catholic Online. This is their encyclopedia online, and these people actually have something called Catholic daily readings with Catholic online every day. They have school. You can actually go in and have Catholic classes right here. You click this link, free Catholic classes. You can join their classes for free. And this is what they have on their website. This is daily reading. So this is what they say for Ham, and I put Shem right next to it. Because you say, well, maybe that's what they say about Ham, but they must say that about Shem too. No. And I don't have to lie. It's right here. So right here it says Ham, son of Noah, and the progenitor of one of they put the 3 great races of men who was ethnographical table is given by Genesis 10. The 3 great races of men. Right? It says, whenever the 3 sons of Noah are enumerated, Ham is placed between Shem and Japheth. We may gather, however, from that. Hold on, let's see. Ham is placed between Shem and Japheth. We may gather, however, from Genesis 9 that the enumeration is not based on their age, since Ham is there spoken as their younger son. All right. So then we go over here. Does it say anything about Shem being anything of a great race? Or you like it says here, it says based on Catholic literature, it told us here that Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan were the great families. Now, does it say that here? It says, in the eldest, his birth generations are recorded. Now, listen to this. He lived to be 600 years of age, and the incident narrated disclosed his final reverences. His reward was a blessing. Noah's prophetic words, according to the Masoretic text, blessed be Yahweh, the God of Shem. Designated in a special manner, Yahweh is the God of Shem. Does it say anything about great? Nothing. Okay, it says the term Semites is applied to a group of people closely related to in language whose habitat is in Asia and partly Africa. So they tell you right here that there are Shemites in Africa. But again, I don't see where it says anything about Shem being great. But they made sure back in 1908, they labeled the Canaanites, the Hamites, as of the 4 great families. But let's just keep going. So let's talk about the Hamitic race. I know a lot of people brought this out. A lot of the one Westerners talk about the, not the Negro, talk about how they say that we're not Hamitic. And so when you look here, again, this is going to actually prove more of us being the so-called Shemites, because it tells us Hamites is the name formerly used for some northern and Horn of Africa people in the context of now outdated model. If they want to say that this is an outdated model. But my thing is why is this an outdated model when every time I look up a doggone Somalian, Ethiopian, they throwing Cushite in my face. I'm not even looking for it. You just Google a doggone Somalian and their ethnic, they're going to tell you that they're Cushitic, but they say that this is outdated. They say Hamites is a name formerly used for the northern and the Horn of Africa for people in the context of a now outdated model of dividing humanity into different races. This was developed originally by Europeans in support of colonialism and slavery. But when you go back to 1908, the Catholic book, the Catholic Encyclopedia, tells you that the Hamites were a great nation. They weren't. They know it. They know what they were doing. They just lied to us because we are so succumbed by them that we believe anything that comes out of their mouths. It's not even scripturally proven that these people, that the Hamites went through slavery. We were their slaves. They say the Israelites built the pyramids, right? Where does it say that the Hamites did anything for the doggone Israelites? Besides when the Most High came in and cleared the Canaanites out of the land. And what was the land called? Milk and honey. They had gold and jewels and houses as tall as skyscrapers. These people were living great. And guess what? We got that stuff. But they never were living like peasants. So it tells you here the term was originally used in contrast to the other two proposed divisions of mankind based on the story of Noah, Shemites and Japhetites. The appellation Hamitic was applied to who? The Berber, the Cushitic, the Egyptians, and the branches of the Afro-Asiatic family. Now, a lot of my brothers and sisters out here want to keep claiming Afro-Asiatics. They keep want to claim Egyptians. They keep want to claim Cushitics. That's not us. And it says here, beginning in the late 19th century, scholars generally classify the Hamitic race as a subgroup of the what? Caucasian race. That's why we hear them, the Somalians, when you watch that clip that I had, they told us, hey, I'm Caucasian. I'm not Hamite. I'm Caucasian. I'm not black. I'm not you. Look at me. I'm Caucasian. Because they're still going based off of this. They're still being, even though they're not teaching us this, they're teaching each other this. Okay? And who does it say? Alongside with the Aryan and the Semitic. It says the Hamitic race was more superior or more advanced than the Negroid. When did the Hamites stop being more advanced than the Negro? When did they stop teaching that the Hamites were advanced? But then that was racist. They say that was racist to teach us that the Hamites were more advanced than the Negro. Now they say that, well, the reason why you're Ham is because you're a Negro, because you went to slavery. That's what they teach now, even though they want to say, well, we don't teach that anymore either. But that seems to be the narrative that's preserved. Everybody knows that. Why is it still circulating if nobody's teaching it? I'm just saying. But when you look here, this is an image of a Berber, right? When you see a Berber, you look at them, they're considered to be about an Arab. They say they are of what? White stock. And then when you see a Somali man, they are what? White stock. This is right here in a simple Wikipedia search, nothing special, right? Now let's talk about Flavius Josephus, okay? In the Antiquities of the Jews, he says in his book, the children of Ham possessed the land from Syria, Amanus, and the mountains of Libanus. Now, what is that? Syria is where? It's over there in the Middle East. Amanus is in Turkey, and Libanus is Lebanon. Where does these places aren't in Africa. It tells you that the Hamites were in Syria. They tell you the Hamites were in Turkey, and they tell you the Hamites were in Lebanon. But our own brothers and sisters, these so-called Hebrew Israelite leaders are going to get up here and tell you that they were in doggone Africa. I'm so tired. I don't know how long what? Why do they want to teach that? Please tell me. If you guys can tell us, sister, why do they want to teach that? When we saw in the book of Genesis, and in the book of Genesis told us that Cush was in the land of Shinar. We start there, right? The land of Shinar is where? In Iraq. Syria is where? By Iraq. Then you have Libanus, which is Lebanon, and then you have Amanus, which is Turkey. Why isn't anybody teaching that Ham is over there? He didn't say just Canaan. He said Ham. Then he says, seizing upon all that was on its sea coast as far as the ocean and keeping it as their own. What does that mean? So I said so it can be in layman's terms, because people need you to be so clear. So I asked AI. It says, yes, the first century historian Flavius Josephus recorded that the children descended of Ham seized land in Africa and the surrounding areas. So when he said that they possessed the land of Syria, Amanus, and Libanus, that was their land. They controlled that land. But then it says they seized land. What land did they seize? Seizing means they stole. And where did they say they did? They seized the land in Africa. They stole the land in Africa. They weren't supposed to be there. And where did we see that at? Where is that mentioned?
That's mentioned right here in the book of Jubilees, chapter 10. I know I quote this book so much until I'm going to turn blue, right? I'm going to turn purple. Jubilees 10:28. It says, and Ham and his sons went into the land where they were to occupy, correct? They were to occupy this land in the land of the south. However, what land was that? That was Syria, Amanus, and Libanus. And then it says, and Canaan saw the land of Lebanon. What's Lebanon? Libanus. To the river of Egypt, that it was very good. And he went not into the land of his inheritance to the west. And he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, which what Josephus says. And then he went westward from the border of the Jordan and from the border of the sea. And Ham and his father and Cush and Mizraim and his brothers said unto him, thou hast settled in a land which is not thine, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do so, for if thou doest so, thou and thy sons will fall in the land. He says, you will be accursed. He said, do not go into there. Why did he say that? He said, dwell not in the dwellings of Shem. So he went into Shem's area. He went into Shem's lot. And what did he see? He saw from Lebanon to Egypt. Egypt is mentioned there. Because Lebanon to Egypt is actually the land that's supposed to went to Shem. Egypt is in Africa, correct? As much as they want to tell everybody Egypt is in the Middle East, no, it's in Africa. And then what did they do? They kept moving further and further and further into the northern region of Africa, seizing and stealing and controlling land. Their empire began where? In Iraq. They began in the Middle East and they controlled that, and then they eventually moved into the northern and eastern region of Africa. That's according to the Antiquities of the Jews from Josephus, and that's also according to the book of Jubilees. So we got two sources that back that up. But we're not going to just end there. Here's Put. Let's talk about Put. Let's see who's mentioned here. So when you just look up Put, he is a son of Ham. Because again, remember, we looked up the Cushites, which is Cush. They say that those are the Ethiopians, the Somalians, the Eritreans. They didn't mention anything about us sub-Saharan Africans, right? The Negro. So here is Put. So they say Put is used for the Bible for the ancient Libyans. So people who live in Libya are Putites. That's what they tell us. Right there, nothing to be. It tells us Josephus. We just read Josephus. It says, Epiphanius writes, thus midstream was allotted to Egypt, Cush, Ethiopia, Put, Axum, Ragman, Sebekta, Dedan, also called Judah, the region of the bordering on Garama. It says Josephus writes, Put also was the founder of Libya. That's not where we're not located there. But as you see, it has a history. And that's what I want you guys to see, is that these locations have history. When we look up we're not digging deep. I didn't have to go into the Antiquities of the Jews. All I had to do was just Google Put. And they tell us this is where the Putites came. They went to Libya. The Cushites, they went to these regions. Egyptians, Mizraim, went to Egypt. As you see here, this is Cush. Mizraim is there. And then Put. Where do we fit in as the so-called black people? They always want to label us. They say, well, Cush means black, so that's you. No, that's not true. And here it is again. Let's look at some history of Libya. And this is actually going to coincide with what I was just talking about with the Canaanites. Because you say, well, the Canaanites are the ones that you just said, and Jubilees are the ones that stole the land. That's right. So we're going to skip this part, but it says Libya has been inhabited by the Berbers since the Bronze Age as descendants from the Ibero-Maurusians and Capsian cultures. In classical antiquity, the Phoenicians established city-states and trading posts in what? Libya. So the Phoenicians actually came into Libya, as is said in the book of Jubilees.
The Phoenicians came in. They're the ones that came into Egypt. They're the ones that came into Africa first. They came into Put, and then eventually their brethren came in and they took the land and they lived there too. And as we see here, the Phoenicians came in, and who are they saying the Phoenicians are? They're saying that they are the Berbers. But you know, a lot of people like to ignore all of that. So that was just a quick history lesson on that. But let's talk about this Hamitic hypothesis and how it's still being taught today. A lot of us know about the Hamitic hypothesis. And what is the Hamitic hypothesis? The Hamitic hypothesis, this segment here is talking about the Hamitic hypothesis. Now take a look at this. It says the Hamitic hypothesis is well known to students of Africa. It states that everything of value ever found in Africa was brought there by the Hamites. That's not what we're taught. But you can say, well, that was discontinued. It says allegedly a branch of the Caucasian race. So the Hamites are the Caucasians. It says Seligman formulates it as follows. Apart from relatively late Semitic influence, the civilization of Africa are the civilizations of the Hamites. Its history, the records of these people, and of their interactions with the two other African stocks, the Negro and the Bushmen. So they put us down there with the Bushmen, with the Sam Bushmen or the Khoisan, right? And if you guys know who the Bushmen are, you know those people are pretty much, out there with bows and arrows, walking around with they're pretty what you would call primitive, right? They put us there. Now, what I find funny is that they want to say that this is outdated. That's not true. But didn't we just read Wikipedia? And didn't they just give us a history lesson? And what did they say? They gave us the location of where these people were from, and all of it does is it aligns right with what the Hamitic hypothesis has originally said. The Hamites are all in Northeast Africa, and they are the ones that established all these kingdoms. What's so racist about that? I don't see anything racist about it. The only thing that's racist is that they don't want to let us know that we're the Shemites. We're not the Hamites. And they say that this is well known to the students of Africa. So they teach that. So let's flash forward to this side. And they tell us in the late 19th and 20th century, so now we're looking into the 20th century, a belief known as the Hamitic theory gained popularity as an anthropological and linguistic theory. According to it, the ancient Somalis, here we go, Ethiopians, and other inhabitants of the North Africa and Horn of Africa were descended from the Hamites, a group of Caucasian people. What do they say? We're not black, we're Caucasian. What do they say? We're not them, we're Cushites, we're Hamites. When did they stop? When did any of this, when was this discontinued? But listen to this part right here. It says the notion was comprehensively refuted by contemporary scientific studies since it was founded on the incorrect knowledge of genetics and racial classification. This theory served to promote scientific racism. So they're trying to say this is racist. Somali people don't in any way resemble Caucasians because Caucasians don't possess features that didn't already naturally exist within Africans. This is the argument that this is for us to read. For African Americans, for us to sit there and go, well, see, for the diaspora to read. This is for us. The diasporans to sit there and say, you see, they don't claim you. They say you don't even look like them. No, this is trying to put us back to sleep because when you keep reading, it says the Hamitic belief still has an impact on some ethnic and nationalist ideologies. It still has an impact, and we see it right now. They tell us to our faces, we're not you, we're Caucasians, because this is still being taught. And I don't have to keep beating the dead horse, because right here they have something called the revised Hamitic hypothesis. So remember, that one was back in the 1960s. This was just back in 2017. So people that want to say, well, that's old. That's not even old. There's something called the revised Hamitic hypothesis. It's called the Geno-Hamitic theory. Again, they don't want us to know, the diasporans to know that they're still including these people. Because they want you to think that they're much more, you know, we don't do that anymore. That's old, that's racist. It's something called the genohamitic theory. It says historians also use, so right here, when you start here, it says the genohamitic theory is a variation of the Hamitic theory. The term genohamitic theory, Hamitic is made up of two words, genetics and Hamitic. So they say the term genohamitic is made up of what? Two words, genetics and Hamitics. It says racists use the Hamitic myth in two ways. First, it was used by racists to justify the enslavement of Africans by claiming Black people were cursed. And then it says historians also use the Hamitic myth to explain why great civilizations were found in ancient Africa. So, yeah, so on both sides, you know, they're both, in both ways, is to make us look bad. Either it's the Hamites, you're Hamites and you did nothing and that's why you're enslaved, you're cursed, or everything. I guess they're trying to cross their T's and dot their I's. Whichever one you want. You know, if you want to believe that Ham, the curse of Canaan, well, that's you. Well, hey, if you read a little bit more, if you're a Bible reader and you actually start to study, well, guess what? Everything that was of value in Africa was done by us white folks. So leave it alone. Done by the Caucasians. Now you're done. Go back to sleep. You know, but that's not what we're not falling for the okie doke. Okay, we're not falling for that no more, because it says the Hamitic theory maintained that there existed in Africa Blacks who had facial features similar to Europeans that were classified as a subgroup of the Caucasian race. These black-skinned whites, did you see that? They said black-skinned whites were imagined by the 19th century European scholars responsible for the spread of civilization across Africa. This is being taught to these people. It's not being taught to us. I keep on emphasizing that because they know this, but they don't want you to know it. Now, what's the big deal about this article besides the fact that they're still using it? It actually tells you. Genohamitists adhere to the Hamitic theory, claim that the Cushites and ancient Egyptians, along with the Semitic-speaking East Africans, and now they didn't put the Fulani in here. I don't know why they put the Fulani in here. How dare they? But they put them in there because they want to claim who they want to, right? But they say, although the Hamitic theory has been debunked, you see how they put that there? Because they got to make sure you go back to sleep. Read this part. Geneticists have revived this myth in their studies of African haplogroups. Although this Hamitic theory has been debunked, geneticists have revived this myth in their studies of African haplogroups. As a result, the East Africans are often referred to in the genetics literature as being distinct from the other sub-Saharan Africans. Sub-Saharan Africans is the name for the Negro race in modern geneticist articles. The Caucasians and the Mongoloid populations are referred to in the genetics literature, respectively, as Western and Eastern Eurasians. So even though they want to tell us that they don't do this anymore, it's been debunked, but meanwhile, geneticists revised it or restored it. It never went away. When do geneticists have time to revise a myth? I love how they say it's a myth and it has been debunked. You see how they try to use words to try to put people back to sleep? But then in the same breath, they say, well, they revised it and they still are using it. They know this. They're just playing hopscotch double dutch with you. Which one do you want? Do you want to believe that Ham was cursed? Oh, you did a little bit more research. You actually do read the Bible. Well, guess what? All of that's been debunked. That's not true. But meanwhile, the Cushites the Somalians call themselves Cushites. What? But you're Ham. And did you guys know that there is actually a Hamitic haplogroup? Yes. There is actually a haplogroup that ties only to the Hamites, because the Hamites actually did exist. They have the burial sites of the Phoenicians. They have the burial sites of the Philistines. They have the tombs of Egypt with the pharaohs in there. And they also have their burial sites. They did geneticists on these people, and guess what came back? It came back to who? E1B1B. It says the Hamitic haplogroup isn't a scientific term. Oh, it's not a scientific term, right? Oh, that's not science. How they have to put a disclaimer out there. And then they say discredited. You see how they put that there too? Theory linking biblical Ham to certain African populations, often associated with haplogroups like EM81 or E1B1B in North Africa or EM183. But scientists now recognize these as complex migrations, not racial links to Noah's son. You see how they don't want you to link it? They hate the Bible so much, and they want to keep us asleep so much. But you mean to tell me these people have been around for thousands of years? They say that they are who they say they are. They have their genetics, they have their DNA, and then when they do the DNA on these people, it goes back to who? East Africans and the North Africans. But again, it says here, it's racist. They're trying again to try to play us. But let's talk about the E1B1B Cushitic connection. So they say the haplogroup E1B1B is a major Y chromosome DNA lineage strongly associated with who? Cushitic speaking populations. They tell you the Somalians, the Ethiopians, the Horn of Africans, they're the ones, and they tell you connection to the Cushitic peoples. They have high frequencies. They're E1B1B. The E1B1B, I know I have to do it. I got to talk about the Canaanites, guys. The E1B1B is found with who? Haplogroup is significant paternal lineage found in ancient and modern Middle Eastern populations, including the Bronze Age Canaanites, who were indigenous Levantine people blending earlier local groups with migrants from Caucasus, Iran, E1B1B. Canaanite genetics. Ancient Canaanite genomes reveal a mix of indigenous Levantine ancestry and incoming groups from the Caucasus, Iran with E1B1B. Where did they say the Canaanites came from? The Caucasus. Where did Josephus say the Canaanites were? In the Caucasus. They were in Amanus, which is where? Turkey. Where it didn't say Africa. It didn't say sub-Saharan Africa. It says the Caucasus. It says E1B1B is common in modern populations of modern East Egyptians, North Africans. It says the Canaanites who inhabited southern Levantine, Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, in the Bronze Age carry E1B1B, making it a key marker for understanding their genetic continuity with modern who? Lebanese and Palestinians and other regional groups. Where does it say anything about us being Nigerians? Why aren't the Nigerians mentioned here? But there's people that are teaching that right now. It says here, Y DNA haplogroup E1B1B is a paternal lineage found in who? What population? Jewish. So the Jews have the E1B1B. Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews, reflecting ancient Levantine Canaanite ancestry, but it's also common in North Africa, Europe, and the Horn of Africa. It says ancient roots, E1B1B was prevalent in the ancient Levantine, the ancestral homeland of the Israelites, making it a key indicator of indigenous Jewish origin. So this whole narrative that the Israelites are the Jews, the Israelites are the Canaanites, is what they're trying to say here, that the Israelites are the Canaanites. And I hear a lot of people, our people, teaching this, that the Israelites are the Canaanites, but that's not what the Bible says. I don't care how they try to push the goalposts. The Israelites are not the Canaanites. The Canaanites are the so-called Jews in the land of so-called Israel, what they claim to be Israel. That's not all of Israel's land. Anyway, but we'll get into that another time. Now, the E1B1B European African connection. This links together with that's why they say they're Caucasians, because the E1B1B links with the Europeans. African ancestry, E1B1B is a core part of African genetic heritage. A device branches of E1B1A, E1B1B found throughout the continent. It says European presence. Its presence in Europe is largely due to migration out of Africa. So when they talk about the out of Africa theory, this is what they're talking about. They teach this. They say, hey, the out of Africa theory is where we get, so-called Caucasians. And who did they descend from? They descended from the darker skinned people who are the Cushites, as they want to claim. But what happened is these people are migrating, and I'm not going to get into how they lost their color. That's another discussion. But right here it says significant African gene flow into the southern Europeans occurred around the time of the Roman Empire and later Arab migration, contributing to the E1B1B presence. So what did it say? The African gene flow into who? The southern Europeans, the Romans, and the Arabs, contributing to the E1B1B. Has nothing to do with us. This is not our story. These people didn't come from us. They're not us. We're not genetically. It says here they have E1B1B. It's strong within the Balkans, the Italians, and other parts of Europe. Please take some time and read this all for yourselves. I'm not going to get too much because I have a whole lot to go into. But let's talk about the history of the Caucasian race a little bit. We're just going to touch on that a little. So the Caucasian race is an obsolete racial classification of humans based on a now, here it is again, disproven theory. It's so disproven that they're still called the Caucasian race today. Do you hear the psychology in this? How dare you tell me something is disproven, but you still use the doggone word? Why are you using Caucasian if it's disproven? Now, it says the Caucasian race was historically regarded as a biological taxon, depending on which of the historical race classifications was being used. Usually included ancient and modern populations from all parts of Europe, Western Asia, Central Asia, South Asia, North Africa, and the Horn of Africa. What did these doggone people say? These Somalians, we're Caucasians. Why do they get up there in our face and say they're Caucasians? This is disproven. Why would they still teach that? You know why? Because why would they say that? Because they're still being taught that. Didn't we just see the Hamitic, what was it called? Let me go back a little bit. The Hamitic, the genohamitic theory. That's still being utilized by who? It didn't say religion people. It says geneticists are still classifying people. Geneticists, okay? These are scientists, all right? This is not people's feelings. It's not based off of people's religion. This is based off of genetics, which is supposed to be science, which is supposed to be separate from that, right? So it says there's three beings: Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid. You see how they make sure they separate the Negro from who? The Caucasians. And they put the Horn of Africa, North Africans, and the Horn of Africans, people that live in the Horn of Africa, as what? Europe as Caucasians. Now, this is a modern definition, right? This is today, Merriam-Webster's definition of a Caucasian. It says, relating to the Caucasus or its inhabitants. It says, or of relating to a group of people having European ancestry. It says, note people of North African and Southwest African ancestry were historically also sometimes considered to be part of the Caucasian race. So they included Africans in there. So right there, it tells you people of North Africa. So it's still including the North African people as Caucasian, okay? People of Africa. But that's to keep us asleep, right? But let's keep going. So let's give a little, let's go into some science here, okay? The early Europeans were originally said to be melanated. That's why I like to say the word all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Just because somebody, you look at the Indian people, right? The Indian people are considered to be Caucasians. Nobody looks at the people of India and say that they're our people. We have to look at the same with these so-called Eastern Africans. Okay, they're not our people either. Just because all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and the original Europeans were what? Melanated. This here is Cheddar Man. If you ever heard of Cheddar Man, he was supposed to be one of the oldest modern, whatever a modern human is. Okay, we'll leave that. But he's supposed to have what they said dark. His phenotype of blue eyes. He had blue eyes and dark brown or black hair, and dark or dark to be black skin. So just because they say dark skin or all of that, that's just a way to keep us asleep. The Europeans, all of them had dark skin. Here's the first civilization in Europe. They're called the Minoans. This is real science. We're not going based off of any, this is archaeology. These are the Minoans. And if you look in the middle, there's a whiter skinned woman. This is their frescoes. So just like the Egyptians had their paint on their wall, their images, they had preserved their art of themselves on their walls. The Minoans did the same thing. I want you guys to take some time out to look into the Minoans. And they were where were they? They weren't in Africa. Okay. These people, and I'm going to bring this bigger for you all to see. This is the Minoan civilization. Right there. Minoans were in the island of Crete, Mycenaean Greece. Right over there, what they would consider, they were before the Greeks. It says the Minoan civilization was a Bronze Age culture which was centered on the island of Crete, known for the monumental architecture and energetic art. It is often regarded as the what? First civilization in Europe. So we're not just making stuff up here. This is what it says. The ruins of the Minoan palaces at Knossos and Phaistos are popular tourist attractions. I actually want to go visit and take a look at these frescoes and take a look at their civilization. I'm very interested, and one day I will be there. But these are their frescoes, and let's take a look at their frescoes. Let's zoom in on it. Let me go down here. Now, depending on who you listen to or where you read, they'll tell you that this is their goddess. This is the goddess Ishtar. She got her breast all out, excuse me. But this is on their walls, on their fresco. Looks like they're worshiping and praising her. But look at how they look. Look at how they look here. They are what we would consider to be brown skin. They have what they would consider to be of a thinner texture hair, kind of like what you would say an Indian person would look. Okay. And they were Europe's first civilization. Now, this woman here, I would say she's a Hittite, Canaanite woman. This because the Canaanites had paler skin. The Canaanites are the ones who had the paler skin. The Hamites are the ones that kept their color, right? But look here, this is another image of the Minoans. They look European. They look, like a European Caucasian. But they are the first civilization of Europe. And let's do something here. Let me give you another little quick find here I thought was pretty interesting, guys, was that the Philistines were the Minoans. There you go. Look at that. There's your Philistines right there. There's your Philistines. They tell you. Evidence from ancient DNA studies indicates that the early Philistines shared genetic components with the Asian population, including groups related to the Minoans and the Mycenaean Greeks. So your Greeks and your Minoans, the Mycenaeans were what? They were the Philistines, ladies and gentlemen. Look at all this information they have. I love how they get up here and act like they don't know nothing about the Philistines, the Egyptians. We just looked at the Cushites' history. Now we didn't look at the Philistines' history. We know that the Libyans were up there, and the Libyans was established. Libya was established by the Canaanites. I mean, guys, it's so unbelievable. Sometimes to myself, I'd be like, dang, you mean to tell me they had all this information? It's just sitting out there. and they don't want let you know. And black people are gatekeepers. I hate to say it, guys. My people, our own people, are gatekeepers. No matter, I can bring all this out, and they're gonna tell you, they're gonna ignore all of it and tell you the Greeks are Japheth. You guys got to tell me why, though. Why do we do that? But that's why we're destroyed, right? The Most High puts curses on us, so I have to say maybe that's fine. I mean, that's a big deal, right? But this is the Minoans. Take some time, guys, and look into the Minoans, look into the Philistines. And this was Europe's first civilization. They all were melanated. They weren't blonde hair, blue-eyed, okay? So don't get confused. So when you hear these Somalians tell you, hey, we're not you. Because just because you got what they call dark skin does not mean that they're not Europeans or Caucasian. I mean, what they would consider to be a Caucasian. Right here, look at this here. I didn't make this. They tell you the Caucasoid skull. So the skulls, you see here that these are Caucasians. They range from the blonde hair, blue eyes, the Pakistani and North Indian. Then they have the Indian, the Horn of Africa. Who's the Horn of Africa? Right there. Horn of Africa, that's your Ethiopian, your Somalians. And then the Middle East. All are considered. And they tell you the term Caucasian race, also Caucasoid, Europoid, has been used to denote the general physical type of some or all of the populations of Europe, North Africa, the Horn of Africa, West Asia, the Middle East. They tell you this. Okay? Now, I thought this was pretty interesting. The myth of the lost white tribes. I got to bring in Blumenbach somewhere, right? I know you guys know who Blumenbach is. Now, they said this man had a collection of 250 human skulls. Who sits around with 250 human skulls and is respected? Where'd he get it from? The catacombs? I mean, he just sitting around just holding on to some skulls, just having, you know how people have collections of, you can have a collection of anything. He just had human skulls. And it says here, the 18th century German anatomist Johann Blumenbach kept a collection of 250 human skulls, but he found one particularly enchanting. My beautiful, he calls it. Will he hold on to the skull and just say, oh, you're so beautiful? Is he kissing him? I mean, come on, guys. But he said it was a beautiful, typical head of a young Georgian female, he wrote. Always of itself attract every eye. He says that there are 5 distinct races or varieties of humankind. Now, he says the Caucasian race. He says Blumenbach's favorite skull became the basis of his Caucasian race, and with that, a scientific typology of whiteness was born. Supporting the hierarchical theories of the new race science took work, which can be seen in the strange and retrospectively unbelievable discoveries of the lost white tribes that proliferated in the 19th and early 20th centuries. It says, while none of these clans proved to be white in the racial sense intended by explorers, the legacies of these lost tribes continue quietly. You see? It continues quietly. You know who it continues quietly amongst? Us diasporans. We're not in on the joke. We're the joke. We're not in on it. They still talking about this. It says it continues quietly but indelibly shape the lives of millions of people from where? Rwanda to India. So the Horn of Africa, so pretty much Africa, the northern, eastern portion of Africa, all the way to India. They all are in on it. Who's left out? Us so-called Negroes. That's who's left out. We're the ones that are being laughed at. They joke. And these so-called gatekeepers, these people who are betrayers, race traitors, they're laughing at us too. But not anymore, because the Most High, you know, he's a loving God, and he's waking us up, right? So when we see the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, they love this, you know, this segment. They hold on to this. It says Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitors of the dark races, not the Negroes, but who? The Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. So we just saw what dark races meant. We saw what the Europeans originally looked like. So they are telling you that dark does not mean Negro. Just because you have dark skin does not mean you are a Negro. You have to remember there's something called phenotype, and then there's something called ethnicity. Everybody, you can look at an Indian. Indians have darker skin than we have. But nobody's going to call them black. So you have to remember that. So I love this. Somebody made this. I just took it. I saw it. They said, if Ham was the father of the dark races, but not the Negroes, who are we? So what is a Negro, right? So it says, a member of a dark-skinned group of people originally native to Africa south of the Sahara. They make sure they separate us. There's dark-skinned people all around the doggone world. All around the world. The so-called Native Americans had dark skin, right? There's people over there in Bali, over there in India, over there in Asia, all of them, Thailand, everybody. There's melanated people all around the world, but they make sure they let you know who the Negro is. Those are the people that are South Africans, not above not North Africa, not in the Horn or East Africa. That's why they always say, we're not you, because you're not. Thank you. Stop checking the black box, though, please. Now, guys, we're going to have some fun. I came across this book. I hope you guys are ready, okay? I'm not going to read a whole lot, but I'm going to get you all into this book, okay? Why they say not the Negro. I actually debated a person about this, a Jew, on my channel a long time ago. He said that Negroes were the beasts of the field. And I have to mention this and talk about this because we're actually going to look into the psyche. Because a lot of us can't really, think like, are these people really are they really that evil? Are they really this, really that conniving and would actually want to withhold this information from us? I know you say you believe in the Bible. I know a lot of you guys say you believe that you're Israelites, but a lot of us, we just have these hearts where we just don't believe that people can be this conniving, but they really are. And look at this book. So we're going to be like a fly on the wall. Okay. We get to actually hear how these people actually talked about us and how they actually felt about us. And hopefully this will help us to be able to wake up and be able to actually see the people for who they really are and how they really view us, okay? Because when they keep saying not the Negro and they keep pushing that in our minds, it makes you feel like you're elevated, like you're better than the Ethiopian. But no, you're not better than the Ethiopian. These people are actually the Hamites. All of them. They are part of the Hamitic family. It wasn't until just recently when they took it and they stopped it. And this book is going to tell us that really quickly. Okay, let me get into that. So this book is actually called The Negro is the Negro a Beast, okay? Or in the image of God. So they're actually questioning, is the Negro a beast or in the image of God? If you look here, it's like a stereotypical look of a what they call a black person. And they say the reasoner of the age, the revelator of the century, the Bible as it is, the Negro and his relation to the human family. They say the Negro a beast, but created with articulate speech and hands. It's funny, okay? You're gonna be laughing, okay? Just laugh, okay? Laugh with me. Don't get offended. Just laugh, okay? It says the Negro beast, but created with articulate speech and hands, that he may be of service to his master, the white man. The Negro is not the son of Ham, not the Negro. That's where that came from. It's this here. So when they keep talking about not the Negro, this is why, because they're saying that you are a beast and that you were given hands. The only reason why you were given hands was because you were to serve the white man. And this is also an attack to my atheists out there. I get people who come to me and try to put the Bible down, but you exchange the Bible to be a beast. But let's talk about it. So yes, if you're looking at this image right here, let me zoom in, if it'll let me. You see right there in the side, you see they got a man that supposedly is a black man. And then if you see here, it tells you that this is Adam and Eve in the garden. And as you see, they're white. And then you see there's a beast or a so-called black man over there looking like an ape. This is real. This is actually what's being taught to these people behind our backs. Okay. It's hidden that we don't know, but they know. All right. So chapter 2, we're going to hop right into chapter 2. As you see, they got so-called image of Christ at the top. This is what the Christian church or the Catholic church is teaching. They got the so-called Negro, and then they got the white man. So we're not going to read all of it, but we're going to just get into some highlights. It says the biblical and scientific facts demonstrating that the Negro is not an offspring of the Adamic family. It says the white, the highest, and the Negro is the lowest. What does that sound like? That sounds like evolution. Okay? The white is the highest and the Negro is the lowest. Presents the strongest contrast to each other in their physical and mental characters and in their modes of life. White is not a color, neither is black. So they're talking about that. We're going to skip that part. It says the long, fine, silken hair of the white finds its strongest contrast in the short, coarse, woolly hair of the Negro. Each individual hair of the white is cylindrical, hence its section of circular, whatever that's supposed to mean, right? I guess that's supposed to be something great. Now it says, I put here, did Noah have the power or the authority to curse a whole generation? So he's questioning the magnitude of the curse of Noah Noah put on Canaan. Now, when you look at it, it says that Canaan was cursed to be a servant of servants, right? That doesn't mean a slave. Okay. There's 3 classes. There's the rich, the rich, the middle, and then there's the servants. So what Noah was pretty much doing was telling them that, hey, somebody has to be the one that's out there planting, gardening. Just because you are somebody that waits tables and you're the one that's out there cooking food and planting the gardens and doing landscape, doesn't mean that you are a slave. Okay, it just means that you're the ones that's out there making the clothes. You're the one that's out there making the wine. You're out there planting. You're very important. The person that was the one that was at the height was Shem. Okay, they were the ones who were supposed to be the rich, the wealthy, and then Then you had the middle, which is Japheth, who gets to reap some rewards, but they still are servants to Shem. And then you had the servants of servants, which was Canaan. They weren't slaves. But what ended up happening is the people who actually became slaves were the Israelites. They actually were cursed, and who put that on them was the Most High. Okay, it wasn't Noah. Completely different situation, but they want to tell us this to make us think that the reason why you're slaves is because just because you're doing landscape and you're making clothing and you're, I guess, like in the industrial doesn't mean that you're a slave. Okay, no, that's not what that means, and that's sad for someone to teach that. But let's see what he's saying. He said, thus the Bible clearly teaches that though Ham offended Noah, there was no curse put upon Ham in consequence of it, forced by the plain teaching of the Bible. So he's making actually a great point here. He's actually proving the fact that Ham was not enslaved. Nor was Shem, nor was any of the sons, because they couldn't really, if they were, let's just say even if they were, they couldn't even become the servants because the doggone Israelites kept sinning and messing up to the point where they became the servants of servants and actual slaves. They had no ownership to themselves. They didn't even own themselves. But he's telling you and I that, hey, Ham was not cursed. And he's telling us that Noah didn't have the authority to curse Ham. I don't know about that, but as far as the way that they want to make it, like curse the whole generation into slavery, no, that's not what happened. That was the Negro. But he wants to teach that Canaan, whom Noah cursed and changed into a Negro. So they want to make it like Canaan was changed into a Negro. That's what they teach. That's what they're teaching now, that Canaan was cursed with black skin. He said, now let us investigate and see what we are called upon to believe. He said, we must believe in a direct opposition to the plain teachings of the Bible that Noah had any authority or any power to visit such a calamity upon Canaan or anyone else. No, Noah did not put any type of curse on Canaan to be like the Israelites. That's completely different. We have to remember that. But what he's saying is he's challenging the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church was teaching that Canaan was cursed with black skin. So he's saying, hey, you mean to tell me Canaan's exalted physical and mental characters, which distinguished the white man from the Negro and gave him a degraded, now he's putting down, us Negroes, he's putting down us black people and saying that, hey, the physical and mental characteristics of a white man to a Negro, the complexion from white to black, it changed his long, smooth, silken hair to short, coarse, woolly hair of the Negro, that it changed his individual hair of his head. Talking about it changed his nose, all of that, teeth. I mean, he really started, you really think about these people, how much they really paid close attention to us, okay? It's how much they study us. Like I said, that man had 250 skulls just hanging out in his house. I mean, what was they on his mantle? Did he sleep with one in his bed? Did he have one were they like trophies? I mean, you have to think about the mindset of why people think that's okay, and to use him as a source to say that he was somebody of value. This person is crazy. I mean, in a sense, to have just human skeletons just hanging out, right? But he's considered to be someone of intelligence. But anyway, I'm a ignore all of that. And he says, Noah manifested no disposition to visit this dire calamity upon any other individual than Canaan. There was no female cursed and changed into a Negro, a negress. So that's a good point. That's why I'm mentioning this. It was no female curse. And this is the same thing we have to think about with Esau. Who did Esau marry to keep the skin white? So let's say Esau was white. Who did he marry to keep the white skin? That question becomes crickets. It's the same thing with Canaan to have dark skin. If he had dark skin, who did he marry to keep the race dark? So it says, hence he had no alternative than to take a wife from among the whites, for he was the father of the Canaanites. The offsprings resulting from his union would not have been Negroes, but half-caste mulattoes. These, upon reaching maturity, would not have taken husbands and wives from among their brothers and sisters, but would have intermarried with the whites. The offsprings resulting from these unions would not have been Negroes, but three-quarter whites. Thus, through their intermarriage with the whites, each succeeding generation of the descendants of Canaan would have grown whiter and their hair straighter until, in the course of time, it would have been difficult, if not impossible, for the ordinary observer to distinguish them from pure whites. And when Canaan had lived out his days and died, he would have been the last, and the clergy would have us to believe he was the first Negro, and the presence of the Negro in subsequent ages would remain unexplained. So he's pretty much saying, hey, this whole notion that the black man or black woman is from Ham is a lie, because there's no way to say that the curse proves that black people can still exist to this day, because who did he marry? If he married amongst all white people, then they all would be what? They would be white by now, which makes sense. However, keep reading. He says, when Noah woke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him, he was offended, and eventually, supposing that it would be more hurtful to Ham's feelings to say something offensive to Canaan than it would be to say the same thing of Ham himself. It says, Noah cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren, by way of further manifesting his displeasure towards Ham and his appreciation of the servants of his other sons, and rendered him. Noah said, God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Ham. We talked about that. Now, he says here that this curse would merely the spiteful babble of an old man. Okay, he's talking about Noah. We're going to ignore that. It is a fact, it is a matter of scriptural record that whilst the Israelites, who were a branch of the family of Shem, were in bondage to the Egyptians. So right there, we know that the Israelites served the Egyptians, who were a branch of the family of Ham. The descendants of Canaan, who Noah cursed, were the masters of one of the finest countries in the world, the land of milk and honey. So the Canaanites actually had he's telling us the Israelites served the Egyptians. The Canaanites had the land of milk and honey. And it says further evidence that Noah drunken despite. So he's pretty much saying what I've been saying this whole time, that the Canaanites were these powerful people. They were not, the Hamites were a powerful group of people. They weren't cursed. So to use the Canaanites as a Negro. So his whole argument, so what is his argument, Nev? His argument is the fact that he wants to say that we're a beast, that we're not a part of the family. It's actually very funny when you think about it. It's sad too. But a lot of people still believe that. And what they did is that they now in our faces say evolution. And he actually brings that out. And that's the main purpose is why I'm even mentioning it. Because he says, this absurd church theory of the Hamitic origin of the Negro is at once irrational, unscientific, and anti-scriptural, and should be repudiated. With the rejection of this ridiculous theory, we have absolutely no explanation of the origin of the Negro. He said, when we approach the atheist with the inquiry, from whence came the Negro and what are his relations to the whites, he proceeds to inform us that the most ancient ancestors of man, as all other organisms, were living creatures of the simplest kind imaginable. So to keep things simple and not to bore, pretty much saying that we're apes. All right. The atheists say, hey, you're an ape. I'm arguing with black people. I'm about to do a debate coming up, and this woman is telling me that we're animals and we're apes. Well, this man is telling you that why do you want to agree? They couldn't get you with the Hamite thing, so now they get you with the apes. They get us either way it goes. It's so interesting. I don't understand. But this whole thing is, and you guys can take some time out and read this, it gets pretty interesting. But let me jump forward, because I wanted to make sure we all understood that they knew all along. It's nothing that they had to find out. They already knew that the Canaanites were these established people. They already knew that they were the Canaanites and that we are somebody separate. So who are we? So when you look at the northern region of Africa, it's E1B1B. You look at the southern region of Africa, it's E1B1A. So it's completely divided. All around here on the side of the Horn of Africa is E1B1B all the way up to the top. So they know how we're separated from these people by genetics. So I want to mention it again. When you look at the Hamite Cushites, their ethnicity is preserved within their history. When you go into I'm mentioning it again. Let me zoom it in for you. The Cushites right there, they tell you they're Cushites, the Somalis, East Cushitic, right there. You go into the Tanzania, what? It tells you that they're Cushitic, Southern Cushitic, right there, boom. You go down to the Ethiopians, where does it say? Cushitic, go down some more. We already know that the Bible speaks of them being Cushitic. And then here you say the Kenyans, and where does it say that? Cushitic. Now, you say, well, maybe they say that for all Africans. Good point. Let's take a look at the Bantu. We're going to talk about the Bantu. It doesn't mention Cushitic. I invite you all, if you have an issue, please take the time and pause. But here you look at the Ugandans, which is right next to Kenya and Tanzania. They don't mention them being Cushitic. Puttites, they don't mention them being any form of Hamite, Cushite, Canaanite, anything for the Ugandans. The Congo, nothing's mentioned. Malawi, nothing's mentioned. Mozambique, nothing's mentioned. Zambia, nothing's mentioned. So when you look at this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different groups of Africans who they consider to be Bantu or sub-Saharan. They don't have a lineage of Ham. You know what I'm saying? Why do they get a lineage of Ham? If we're all supposed to be Hamites, why don't we have a genetic link to any Hamites, the Puttites, if we are the Canaanites, let's just say we're the Canaanites, why don't they put on there that we're the Canaanites then? All right. But look at Nigeria, for instance. Let's take a look at Nigeria. Remember I talked about these other groups linked to the Cushites. Well, there is history of the Nigerians linking to the Igbo Jews. They got Igbo Jews, and they say that they are part of the lost tribes. There's history of us going to who? The so-called lost tribes of Israel. There's no history of them going back to any Hamites, but there is history of them going back to the lost tribes of Israel. And what tribe specifically? The tribe of Gad. Now, my thing is why are the so-called Hebrew Israelites teaching that these other people, these Native Americans, are Gad when we have Nigerians who we descend from, you know, those are our people, actually saying that they have ties to the Gadites? Can you guys tell me why do they do that? Here we have Zimbabwe. Here's another one. Zimbabwe say the Limba people of Zimbabwe and South Africa are considered lost tribes of Israel. Doesn't say are considered to be Cushites. Doesn't say they are any Hamite. But it does say Israel. Interesting. So the northern portion of the land of Ham, like I taught at the beginning of this video, tells you that the Hamites came into this whole continent was Shem's lot, but the Hamites invaded, like it was written in Book of Jubilees, and also what Josephus had said. We see Shem was suppressed down into the lower region of Africa, the southern region, or what they would call sub-Saharan Africa. We are classified as a group of what? Bantu. Now look at this. I didn't do this on purpose, but when you look here, what does it say? It says Cushitic right there. These people keep their name Cushite, proud. We just get Bantu. Yes, and then when you look at this is another point I'm seeing here. The land of Ham seems to be cursed with sand, right? It's brown, and then the land of Shem is green, right? So it looks like the land down at the bottom. And then you look here, they say the Book of Jubilee says Ham was to occupy the hottest part. So it's hot up there in the northern portion of Africa. In the southern portion, if you know, Africa in the southern part is actually pretty cool. You know, it actually snows in South Africa. Yes, it actually snows. So it's not too hot and it's not too cold. But I got to bring up my guy Flavius Josephus again. And he says, Africa was actually named after the grandson of Abraham. Yes. The grandson of Abraham is where Africa received its name. Who is that? That is a Shemite. So Africa being the land of Shem. So somebody says, hey, where did you get that from? Book of Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 15. Boom, right there, tell you. Africa was named after who? Abraham's grandson. That's why they tell you that you're not a Cushite. That's why they tell you you're not a Canaanite, because we don't link to them. That's why they tell you you're Africans. They don't tell you the history of Africa. But right there, why would Josephus say that? They use Josephus for everything else. For some reason, this never really is told. So let's talk about the Bantus really quickly. We're just going to touch on it. If you guys want to do more research on them, please come back and watch this and pause at your discretion. But it says the Bantu-speaking people comprise of over 400 different ethnic groups found in many countries in Central, East, and Southern Africa. and they are united by the Bantu languages. Oh, excuse me. All right. And they had an expansion. So they want to say that we came down and did this, and that's not true. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. Okay. But the Bantus are the ones who went into slavery. Remember, I told you that the northern or the eastern Africans didn't go into slavery. It was the Bantu. So let's talk about the East Africans or the Cushites who actually sold the Bantu Shemites into slavery. So they always tell us, oh, well, you guys sold each other into slavery. Now, don't get me wrong. Black people, we have black on black crime. We have our problems, but as do other groups, as do other nations. Right now, we see Russia and Ukraine are battling. We see a lot of war over there in the Middle East. Trump is doing his thing with Venezuelans and all over there with Greenland. They have their thing too. So it's not unheard of for our people to, to sell each other into slavery. However, that's not really what happened. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the East African slave trade and who was the ones that did that. So the Somalians, so it says here, the Indian Ocean slave trade. So there was actually something called the Indian Ocean slave trade. This is something that we do not hear about. It's the Indian Ocean slave trade. I was actually pretty surprised when I heard about the Indian Ocean slave trade. I've heard of the Trans-Saharan slave trade, and I've heard, of course, of the transatlantic slave trade. But let's add this one. It's called the Indian Ocean slave trade. And it says it was a multi-directional and changed over time. It says to meet the demand, let me blow this up for you guys. Hopefully you can see it. It says to meet the demand for menial labor, Bantu slaves were captured from southeastern Africa and sold into cumulatively large quantities over the centuries to who? Egypt, Arabia, Somalia, Persia, India, the Far East, and the Indian Ocean Islands. It says from 1800s to 1890s, between 25,000 and 50,000 Bantu slaves are thought to have been sold from the slave markets of Zanzibar alone to the Somali coast by Somali slave traders. Most of the slaves were the Makua, Nyasa, Yao, Zaramo, and Zigwa ethnic groups of Tanzania, Mozambique, and Malawi. Collectively, these Bantu groups are known as the Mushinguli, which is a term taken from Mizgula, the tribe's word for people. The world's word holds multiple implied meanings, including worker, foreigner, and servant. All right. So right there, it tells you the Bantu adult and children slaves, referred to as Jarir by their Somali handlers, were purchased in the slave markets explicitly to do undesirable work on plantations with oversight. It says the Bantus were conscripted to forced labor on Italian-owned plantations since the Somalis themselves were adverse to what they deemed menial labor. All right, so right there, we see the East African slave trade. And I can't believe Indians had us in slavery, had our people in slavery, right? This is something that's been let go. We don't hear about this it's been lost in history. We don't hear about this at school, right? The Ethiopians had us in slavery. The Egyptians, we knew that. But, this is all about the Bantus being enslaved all around pretty much the eastern portion of the world. Now, let's get a little bit more specific. It says, yes, according to AI, Somalis enslaved Bantu people, primarily from Southeast Africa, modern-day Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania, now we're talking about the Arab slave trade between the 1800s and early 20th century, forcing them into agricultural labor and domestic servitude in southern Somalia, creating distinct Bantu communities like Gosha, who faced severe discrimination and persecution. So they talked about, yes, they did enslave us. The Somalis had a golden state. They had an empire. The Ethiopians had an empire, and they all ruled together the Eritreans, the Sudanese, the Kenyans, all of them enslaved our people. Let's talk about slavery in Somalia some more. Now, again, I'm going to emphasize some more things on this. Slavery in Somalia existed as a part of the East African slave trade and Arab slave trade. To meet the demand for menial labor, Bantus from the southeastern African slaves were exported from Zanzibar and were sold cumulatively large numbers over the centuries to customers in East Africa and in other areas of Northeast Africa and Asia by the Somalis. Now, these people got the nerve to say that we're lazy. They're using our resources that our ancestors fought for. They say that they are not so-called Black Americans, and they owe us reparations, but they check in the black box. You see how this works? Off the Bantu, they enslaved, they sold our people, and then they have a distaste and look down. But they using our people for resources, and then now they're making videos telling us, hey, can you help us? Help you? But this is the main point I want you guys to look at. It says we were sold to customers in Northeast Africa and Asia by the Somalians and the Ethiopians. Now, they said especially Amharas and the Tigrayans were also captured and sold to people in Arabia, India, and Greece. Now, I want to make a big deal about the Amharas. Keep that name in your mind, the Amharas. Now, they say that the Habesha slave trade was a lot of the Bantu women were sold to be concubines, and a lot of the males, our young men, were castrated, and they were dying. A lot of them were dying because they castrated them. They utilized the women as concubines and raped them, and then they sold them as concubines and servants, and then they took our young males and they castrated them. A lot of them were bleeding to death and they were dying. And we lost a lot of our young males that way. It's pretty sad, but that's what the Bible spoke of. It's about, the males being castrated. But the Amhara, what's the big deal about the Amharas? Okay? The Amharas. And I promise you guys, we're going to do a nice video on our heritage. I did a big video on Ham. I got to do a big video on the Israelites, right? The Bantu. But let me tell you, the Amharas. Who were the Amharas? They were a Semitic-speaking ethnic group indigenous to Ethiopia in the Horn of Africa, traditionally inhabited the parts of northwest highlands of Ethiopia, particularly the Amhara region. Now, it says, according to the 2007 national census, Amharas numbered around 19 million, so about 20 million of Ethiopia's population. They are also found within the Ethiopian expatriate community, particularly in North America. They speak Amharic, an Afro-Asiatic language family of the what? It doesn't say Cushitic branch. It says Semitic branch. They say the Amhara and neighboring groups of the north and central Ethiopia and Eritrea, more specifically the diaspora, refers to themselves as the Habesha or the Abyssinian people. Historically, the Amhara, let me zoom in. Historically, the Amhara held significant political positions in the Ethiopian Empire. They were the origins of the what? Solomonic dynasty. Say that with me. Solomonic dynasty. So who did they particularly trade in the slave trade? They were selling, and it tells you right here, especially the Amharas, because before they were slaves, they were the rulers of what they call the Ethiopian Empire of the Solomonic dynasty. And guess what? The Amharic people have E1B1A. I know I've been talking about E1B1B all night, but the Amharic people have the E1B1A haplogroup. And what is the Solomonic dynasty, you say? Glad you asked. The Solomonic dynasty was the ruling dynasty of the Ethiopian Empire from the 13th to the 20th century. The dynasty was founded by Yakuno Amalak, who overthrew the Zagwe dynasty. So they overthrew these other Ethiopians, and they came into rulership in 1270. His successors claimed that he was descended from the legendary King Melanik I, the supposed son of the biblical king Solomon and the queen of Sheba. What was his DNA? What were these people's DNA? E1B1A. Now, it says, in order to legitimize the dynasty's assumption of power, although this claim ancestry gave the dynasty its name, I loved how they say there's no credible evidence. But when they want to say that they're found, it's interesting to me how they stood tall about the Cushitic people, and how I never saw a disclaimer with the Ethiopians or those different groups, the Kenyans, the Somalians. It didn't say, well, there is no credible evidence to support that they are the Cushites. You see that? It wasn't none. They said that they were the Cushites. They have the ancestry, they have the language. But when we see the Shemites, oh, well, there is no credible evidence. But I love also how they call it an Ethiopian empire when they're actually the enemies of the Ethiopians. They actually enslaved our people. And that's the kingdom of Abyssinia. Have any of you heard of the kingdom of Abyssinia? The kingdom of Abyssinia was founded in the 13th century CE and transforming itself into the Ethiopian Empire. It wasn't transformed into no Ethiopian Empire. What they did was they just labeled it as Ethiopian Empire to hide it under the Ethiopians. But they say, via a series of military conquests lasted until 20th century, it was established by the kings of the Solomid dynasty, who claimed descent from no less a figure than the Bible's King Solomon. Now, this is our people's history right here, because they tell us that our people, the Amharic people, who are these people who founded the Abyssinian kingdom. And then you sit back and you say, well, they say that they actually were the descendants of King Solomon. The Bantus are the Shemites. This is just one branch of the kingdoms that we actually have. And we saw that those people were actually enslaved. And we saw that these people actually had the DNA of E1B1A. What more do we need to prove that we are indeed the Shemites? But ladies and gentlemen, let me read this for you. It was established by the kings of the Solomon dynasty, who claimed descent from no less than a figure than the Bible's King Solomon, who ruled in an unbroken line throughout the state's long history. They say it's a Christian kingdom which spread the faith via military conquest and established of churches and monasteries. Its greatest threat came from the Muslims trading east. And who came in and enslaved us? The Trans-Saharan, which was the Muslims who came in, the Arabs came in, right? And they said here that the Muslim trading states of East Africa and Southern Arabia and the migrations of the Oromo people of the South, the combination of its rich Christian heritage, the cult of its emperors, and the geographical obstacles presented to invaders meant that the Ethiopian, I love how they call it Ethiopian, it's not Ethiopian, would be only of 2 African states never to formally colonized by European power. So they never was even colonized. They say down here, the kingdom of Axum. That's what it is. The kingdom of Axum. That's what it was before it became Abyssinia. It was Axum. It says the Ethiopian highlands, which their reliable annual monsoon, rainfall, fertile soil, and had been successfully inhabited since the Stone Age, agricultural trade with Egypt, Southern Arabia, and other African people ensured the rise of the powerful kingdom of Axum, which was founded in the 1st century, flourishing from the 3rd to 6th century CE, and then surviving as much as smaller political entities within 8th century. Kingdom of Axum was the first, what does it say? Sub-Saharan African state to officially adopt Christianity. I love how they want to say that we adopted Christianity. We didn't adopt no doggone Christianity, but it goes to show you that we was in this land long before, and it says Sub-Saharan African, and it says that we're the ones that created our own script, Giaz. So the Ethiopian Bible, that was written by the Israelites. That was written by us. It wasn't written by no doggone Cushites. It was written by the Ethiopians. It was written by the E1B1A, the Sub-Saharan Africans, because right here, according to the World History Encyclopedia, they say they also created its own script, Giaz, which is still used in Ethiopia today. And who wrote that? The Sub-Saharan Africans. Why would the Cushites write anything about the Bible? That was us. They said we were the first Christian. No, we were the Israelites. What happened is that, the victor gets to tell the tale. But we're going to continue on with that on part 2. We're going to get into the history of the Israelites in Africa and prove more that we are definitely the true children of Israel, the lost children of Israel. But guys, we're the Shemites. But guys, I thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope we had some fun. If you missed the video, please come back and play it again. Please, please, I beg of you to share this video with others. Please share the video. Please leave comments. And if there's any questions you may have for me, I'm here. I hope you guys learned something with me today. But I want to just tell you guys something really quick. 1 second. Let me share something with you all. We're going to roll something else for you guys. 1 second.
So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like it's an interesting thing. It's very hard to describe what it means to be Somali and what it means to be American, but it's like a cultural fusion. It's kind of like the bananas and rice. People don't really see, people don't think, oh, you can eat bananas with rice, but that's what it's like to be Somali and American. It's like that combination of banana and rice, but you're gonna get what I mean.
Somalis are not black. Let me explain why. Looking at me right now, chat, am I black? I'm literally brown. I'm literally brown, bro. Think about it as well. Somalis are Arabs. We're in the Arab leagues. We speak the Arab language. We eat the Arab food. Bro, think about it like this, bro. If a whole community doesn't regard themselves as black, we can't be black, bro. We literally can't be black, bro.
Black is just a social construct. Do not insult me or my ancestors by calling me black, okay? When the first European came to Somalia, they called us Caucasian, dark Caucasians. My hair is different, nose different, facial structure different, even voice.
We are Somalis, not black. There, I said it. Alright, everyone is keep asking, why don't Somalis want to identify as black? It's simple. The term black was never a word to begin with. Yeah. The term black, it didn't come from Africa. It came from America. Hello, right? It was designed to separate slaves from Europeans. It was not designed to celebrate identity. It was to control it. Yeah.
I don't care who say first, but we are not black. We are Somalis, we are not black. I don't know how to explain you guys this. This is like 5 years we are fighting about this topic. Let's change it.
So Ethiopians, right? You guys like, so like, how do you view like other countries in Africa, like a Somalia or like a Kenya?
So it's not a good thing that I'm mentioning it because we say African people. If it's Uganda, if it's South Africa, we're just gonna call them African. Oh, he's from Africa. It's not a good thing, but you know, yeah. I say.
It's crazy.
See how they laugh? You see how she laughed? She said, you see how she called them African? If they're Ugandan, if they're South African, we call them African. Says the Ethiopian. She laughs. It's not a good thing. We know it's wrong. But it's not. Because they're not. They're not us. They know it. They told us. They told us loud and proud. I'm Caucasian. I'm not this. They weren't lied to. This isn't a way to separate us. This isn't trying to get proximity to whiteness. This is not them trying to, they don't hate themselves. No. We're the Israelites. We're the children of Israel. They are the Cushites. They want to keep us down so they can stay up high. As the scripture says. 1 second. I don't remember sharing that with you guys, but as the scripture said, we will be discontinued from our heritage, right? It says that we will be discontinued from our heritage. Let me find that scripture with you. That was Jeremiah 17:4. Me share that with you guys really quick. Let me pull it up. So here it is right there. It says, and thou even thyself shall discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. Ooh, me. Talk about making the Most High mad. Oof. Fire that shall burn forever. Yeesh. Look at that. It says, and thou, even thyself, shall discontinue from thine heritage. We're the only ones that don't know our heritage. We need to stop looking at these other groups as if they don't know. We're the only ones that have been spread abroad and have been placed into captivity. Yes, other groups have been subjugated and, put down. Of course, I'm not going to take that away. However, to not even know where a lot of them saying, if you don't jump into this, you're going to be the ones who are going to be put into captivity. You're going to be, not captivity. You're going to be kicked out of the land too. You got to fight too. They're going to send you back. Send us back where? where do we go? Where do we go? To Israel? The Most High has to come get us. He has to save his people, and he'll take us wherever he wants us to go, right? But the thing is that they're all in on this joke. You see how she was laughing? She thought it was funny. She was like, I know it's bad, but no, it's not bad. It's just the fact is that we have to wake up and we all have to do our home. Like you said, I'm gonna look at some of these comments while I sit here. What you said this is good, but they say these people say that. Thank you. You laughed. What you say here? You said Ham was not cursed because his son Canaan was the one who did the act. Canaan was the one who stole Noah's garment. Thank you for bringing that out. That is facts. Canaan did steal the garment. He did not have relations with his mom or his dad, or Ham stole the garment. Yes, and he gave it to his son Canaan. That's right. So Ham was the one who stole the garment. I'm sorry, not Canaan. I'm reading what you wrote. You said because his son Canaan was the one who did the act. No, you got that a little wrong and you're confusing me. What happened is that Ham stole the garment and he was the one who gave it to Cush, and they said that it was actually Nimrod who they said was the one that he gave the garment to. And that's why they said that he became a mighty hunter. But yes, that was close. You said it made you pull out your notebook? Yes, pull out your notebook. Take some notes. Take some notes. Come back and watch it again. And then I didn't read every single, everything verbatim, but take some time and actually read what I presented. And then take that information and build from it. And share it with others. Okay? You said Haile Selassie? That's right. You said Ham even warned Canaan that the Most High would wipe him off the face of the earth for selling in it. Yes, another fact. He settled in a land that was not his. That's what they have been doing. We see where they settled. We have, like I said, a lot of people who get up here and actually say they believe in the Bible really don't. Because they don't want to believe in the Bible. They want to be, thorns in our sides, and they seem to get up here to get this following and they teach all these lies. But that's not the truth. Oh, I got a fan in the chat. Oh, wow. Thank you, Pharaoh Mitzrayim. This presentation was horrible and contradicting. Well, thank you for taking some time out and actually listening. You have to leave it 2 times. Well, thank you. Another of what you shared, I knew. However, I learned so much more. Thank you and keep up the phenomenal work, Empress. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate thank you for that. I got some hate mail there, but not bad. Let's see. We are the chosen seed. That's right. They are disciples of greed. Facts. He said these others are complicit. They are. She can keep laughing as her people get their recompense. Exactly. Keep laughing. You never let me down, Naphtali, no matter what topic or information you bring forth, Empress. Keep up the fun. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I got all my fans with his hate mail, But is there any questions anybody may have? Anything anybody wants me to expound further on? If not, this was a bit of a lengthy, all my presentations are, some time, but I took some time and I really dug in deep because I wanted to teach on the Cushites, because we don't really too much hear about the Cushites. And believe it or not, how much history is out there on them? I mean, gosh, I was like, and I didn't even share anything. If you guys think that what I presented tonight was a lot, think about what I had to comb through to try to determine what should be shared because I had so much, I had so much to give. That's why I got to do a part 2. What you say here? I learned a lot and validated some thoughts. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Avery. You said, can I share your video? Can you share my video? Please share my video. All of you guys, I invite you all. Your sis is trying to get to 4,000. Help me get to 4,000, guys. It's been a process. I know people don't like the information, so it's kind of hard. And I also have to tell myself too that I'm not as I want to present more information and be more active, and I'm working on it, and I'm trying to work on ways to keep people engaged and wanting to subscribe. There's a lot of us out here that's trying to get you all's attention, especially somebody who's teaching you something that's completely different. But that's why it's called a new school of thought, right? But please share my video. I would be honored. You say we are not the same as East Africans, but you say we are the same as those light-skinned people in Palestine? When did I say that? When did I say that? Why would we be the same people in Palestine? I didn't even mention Palestine. Palestinians are the Canaanites. Well, Palestine is Philistine too. So, no, I don't think you paid any attention to what I had to say. If you left that as a comment, then you really didn't hear nothing I said. I never said we were the same people. No, we're not the same as East Africans. I'm sorry, we're not. Now, did we have a pharaoh that ruled in Egypt? Yes, we did. Ramses the Third. He had E1B1A. So yes, we were there, and we did possibly the second. You know, so yeah. But no, we're not. No, I never said. And let me share that with you guys. 1 second. Let me share that. Let me stop this one, and let me share this with you guys. The Pharaoh Ramses the Third, E1B1A. All right, let me share that with you. Let me close this out. There we go. Now we have Pharaoh Ramses the Third right there. It tells us scientific studies, most notably a 2012 investigation into the harem conspiracy of the death of Ramses III, identified that both of the Pharaoh Ramses II and his son carried the Y DNA haplogroup E1B1A. So it we were in that land. We did. Now, how did we get up there? That's for mommy's baby, daddy's maybe, you know, but this is only spread through the paternal, so this is a Y haplogroup, so this has to be from a male. So we know that Joseph was sought after by the women, so that does that. So Pharaoh's wife specifically. So a lot of the women were looking for the Hebrew men, and we had some Hebrew men. E1B1A sit on the thrones, possibly two. Ramses II. Let's talk about him. He possibly was of E1B1A as well. Right here, Ramses II, it says, based on available studies, particularly the third had E1B1A. Ramses II is understood to share this genetic marker. So right there, they said Ramses II also had E1B1A. So Ramses II and the third, and Ramses III's son. So, you guys tell me what you think about that. We're not the same as those people. So, we don't want to cultural appropriate. Like I said, in Genesis 39:7, it states that Potiphar, the Pharaoh wife wanted to be with Joseph. That was Genesis 39:7-20. She had a desire for him. So that means that a lot of those women that were in Egypt had a desire for the Hebrew men. Okay, as we saw, Moses was with a Cushitic woman. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the chat. Also, if anybody wants to send a girl a cash app, ADUIC 777, appreciate it. Or send me did I get any? Let's see. Did I get a cash app? Oh, thank you at Septuagint Maccabees for that. I hope you're still there. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for that donation to the channel. I truly appreciate it. I'm just now looking. You said, thank you for this presentation. This was eye-opening. Yes, thank you. Please share. And if you haven't, like, share, and subscribe, and send your girl a cash app, send your girl a donation. I will be back with part 2. I will be talking about the Aksumite Empire, talking about the Ethiopian Bible. I will be talking about how these people are taking our heritage and mixing it in with their own. The Ethiopian Bible is supposed to be the oldest Black Bible or the oldest Bible. And guess who it came from? It came from the sub-Saharan Africans, because we're the ones that came up with the GS. Okay. We saw that in my presentation. Thank you for the message. I'm looking forward to part 2. Please come in. Share. If Black Americans are not Hamites, then you would certainly have to admit Black Americans are not Shem. Why not? Pharaoh Mitzrayim. Why do you want to be Ham so bad? I told you that Ramses was there. Ramses was there. But his DNA, what about genetic markers? Look at the genetic markers. If we are indeed Ham, then why don't they want us? They found, think about it like this, guys. Think about the logic, right? Just listen to me, Radio 1. Listen to me. You should rename. You should give yourself Ramses as a name. But listen to me, right? Okay. They found the grave sites of all these civilizations. And when they did the DNA analysis on these people, their DNA went back to who? The so-called Caucasians. The Caucasians even labeled themselves as the Hamitic group because they still have their history and it's preserved. The Canaanites went back to who? They went back to the so-called Jews, the Lebanese, all of them in the so-called Middle East. We have history. The Nigerian Igbos, the Limba, the Axumite, Amharic groups in Africa. We have Josephus. We have tons of information that I provided tonight to prove that we are the true Jews, that we are the true, our history, our story. I'm gonna drop the link. What you say here? Most High bless to you. Palestine is Israel, and you say we are Israel. Palestine is Philistine. Stop it. Stop. You stop. Palestine is Philistine. You said, what about us Niletes? Because the Hebrew camps be sharing the memes using Niletes as Hamites, which I feel like is a false and miseducated people. I'm glad you brought up the Niletes. You know what? I had so much stuff I was talking about, right? And let's talk about Niletes, right? Because the Niletes, you guys are not, they exclude you guys, from being Ham. Okay? When I look up East Africans, the Cushites, they do not include you Niletes. But guess what? We will include you because, with the Maasai and all of you are definitely Shemitic people. Okay? They don't include you, so that means we have to, because that means that we are with you. You said, Neftali, there is a channel called Yeker Malakia who teaches at the Canaanites are white. Yeah, I be feeling like people be, are catching on, or waking up, or maybe taking my stuff. Which one you think it is? I don't know. But yes, the Canaanites are indeed Caucasian. You said Palestine's and Israel. Oh, you didn't hit the. Okay, you're up here now, so I guess you and I can have a nice conversation. Let me see what else is up here. Oh, what's going on, Quanav? You want to hit the link? Come on in. All right, so let's see. What you say, Pharaoh? Oh, thank you so much for the donation. I truly appreciate it. That means the world to me. What you say here, Notorious Hebrew? You say, Natalie, if it doesn't resonate with the people, maybe because it's not for them. Don't argue with distraction. They are workers of chaos. We gotta see, we'll try to see if we can help people out.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. How can I help you tonight? Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I watched the presentation, and I have to admit that it was horrible. It was very contradicting. You didn't show any primary sources to prove your claims, and it seems to me that you want to pick and choose who you want to be. Now, that's what it seems to me. And yeah, and now, because at the beginning, now you contradicted yourself, because at the beginning you was agreeing that Somalians, East Africans are not the same as Hamites, but and you was agreeing that the Negro is a beast. You agree that when it said the Negroes are not Hamites, but somehow you want to disagree when it says the Negro is a beast. So that actually shows me that
I'm trying to listen to you and not cut you off and be rude to you, but that's I don't know was you listen? I don't think you definitely weren't listening to me if you
oh
came
yes, I was
to that
listening.
conclusion. I never said the Negro was a beast.
Yeah, I mean, no, you didn't have to say it, because know why? Because by you agreeing with them that the Negroes were not Hamites, by you disagreeing with them that the Negroes were not Hamites shows that you actually agree with them when they say the Negro is a beast.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Let's talk about that really quickly. What I'm doing is showcasing how these people, as it was quoted, I showcased the scripture. These people are our enemies, and they go through. They don't want to say that we are from the line of the line of Adam. So they made up that we are an animal. Okay. And when they say not the Negro, I was exposing the fact that they weren't trying to give us a pass, that they were actually saying that we were the beast of the field. Now, does that mean I know we're not the beast of the field? We are the Shemites. That's why I took the time to showcase that, and also showcase how the whole idea of Canaan or Ham being cursed is an outright lie. It's unbiblical and it's unscriptural, to the point where they knew that they don't want to even give us any. And you say at the beginning, I said that they weren't Hamites. No, my whole presentation was geared towards the Somalians, the Ethiopians, the Eritreans, the Kenyans, the East Africans, and showcasing how they're Cushitic and how they are Hamites. And then I took the time to showcase how they actually preserve it. You say I was using remedial sources. I'm using sources that are available to people who don't really do a lot of research, who is easily found. And where all you had to do is just Google what's the ethnic background of a Somalian, of an Ethiopian, of a Kenyan. It would come out that they're Cushites. But you do the same thing for Ugandan, the same thing for a Nigerian, or anyone that's supposed to be of Bantu, Congolese people, Namibia, all people around the sub-Saharan region of Africa. They're not going to give you any type of lineage to Ham. Why do you think that? Why do they give them lineage to Ham, but don't give us lineage to Ham?
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the people who are writing up these, your anthropologists, your geneticists, your scientists, why don't they give us any lineage to any group, especially Ham? Why don't they give it to us? They give it to the Ethiopians, they give it to the Eritreans, they give it to the Somalians. Why don't they give it to us?
Yes, because that has to do with racism, okay? And that's the kind of racism that racism you just agree with it on this video.
Why are they racist? Why are they only racist to us then? Why do they give them a designation and not to us?
Yeah, because we became their slaves, okay? And they want to connect themselves to Ham and the Bible.
No,
so they have to take us out the picture. And that's
what about the Somalians, the Ethiopians? Why weren't they considered to be? Why do they get to be Hamites specifically Cushites, but the Ugandans, which is right next to them, the Rwandans, which is right next to them, the Congolese, which is right next to them, also then going more Western Africa, the Nigerians, going southern, the Namibians, why don't they get the same respect of being a part of the line of Noah?
Yes, because it's because of racism.
Why aren't they racist to them?
Why aren't they racist to
the Ethiopians, the Somalians, the Eritreans, the Kenyans, the Tanzanians? Why did they get the Libyans?
Yes, because they never had any, they never enslaved those people. See,
why not?
They lied about us because they enslaved us.
Why did they not enslave those group of people, but they enslaved our group?
Yes, because those group of people also, they were the first to accept Christianity. See, it was all about.
They don't accept Christianity; they're Muslims.
Yes, and that's why that they were never enslaved, and they always saw them as above us because they had no interaction with them, so they had to lie about us because we were their slaves.
No, but all through West Africa,
okay,
West Africa, they're Muslims and Christians. Why are they still not given a designation to the line of Noah, the lineage of Noah?
Yes, because West Africa was the land where they were getting their slaves from.
But there was an East African slave trade. There was an East African slave trade.
But that had nothing to do with the Europeans who were writing about the Negroes, who were the Western Europeans. They had no interactions with the East Africans.
They did. They were trading slaves with them.
No, they were not.
Slaves. Yes, they did.
They were trading slaves on the west coast of Africa.
No, I just sat down and I broke down the East. There's something called the East African slave trade. There's something called the Trans-Saharan slave trade. And then there's something called the Transatlantic slave trade. You mean to tell me the Europeans had no knowledge of the Eastern slave trade or the Trans-Saharan slave trade?
The Europeans who were enslaving us had no knowledge. No, they were not engaged in it.
They weren't engaged. So they didn't. The Greeks. No. They didn't say the Greeks had us enslaved.
The Greeks. Now the Greeks.
The Egyptians. So the Egyptians owned us. Owned the E1B1A. The Somalians owned us. The Egyptians owned us.
So you're dealing with a whole different time.
Whole different time. I'm dealing with my people's time.
That has nothing to do with the Atlantic slave trade.
Okay. Yeah, what does that have to do with any? Oh, so you mean to tell me?
See, and here's the problem. Here's the problem. You saying that you're a Shemite, you're an Israelite, okay, but you're not showing it from the source you're reading from. You saying it because you want to cherry pick and choose to be an Israelite. But you're not showing it from the source that you're agreeing that says the Negro is a beast and the Negro is not a Hamite. You're not showing it from that source. It's coming from your own imagination. And that's the problem.
No, what I'm showcased is real anthropological evidence and historical evidence, as well as genetic evidence that they have found the burial, they found the tombs, they found the cemeteries, the grave sites, the civilizations of these people, and they did DNA analysis on these people, and their genetics go back to E1B1B. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't have E1B1B. I have E1B1A. So that's not my people. But that's not my people.
Yeah, that's dealing with DNA that's not biblical and that's not historical. That's DNA.
That is historical because it's the DNA of the people that lived in these historical ancient sites.
No, it's not. DNA genetics is not historical. When I say historical, I'm talking about ancient texts, ancient writings.
They have the ancient writings
that is contemporary with the Bible. The field of DNA studies came about in modern times. Do you even know when the field of DNA and genetics was started? It was started in the 1800s. So that means before that, Nothing about DNA and genetics existed.
This is a
So
way to
that's why
confirm.
I
The
don't I
thing
don't
is
even I
that
don't even
even if it
entertain.
didn't, if it didn't exist, it exists now. I'm sure if you had a child and you had a woman and you wanted to confirm that that child was yours, you would make sure you got a DNA test on that child. So the thing is,
Yeah.
I know you would. So my thing is that these people were real. The Egyptians did exist, and they did the DNA analysis on the Egyptians, and they did the DNA analysis on the Philistines. The Philistines go back all the way to the Minoans who are up there in Crete. They are linking these people. Why don't you want it to work?
Yeah, but you're saying now, but you're trying to connect to those people 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And you
No,
can't
those
and you
people
can't
have
use
never, according to Josephus, and I
now,
mentioned
it's not
that.
2,000 years ago.
No. Josephus actually says that the Hamites never left their land. They just changed their names.
No, see, but you failed, okay, but you failed to read the rest of Josephus when he said that the Hamites were in Egypt and in Cush in Libya. Why
I,
didn't you show
I
that part?
did read that.
You
You
try
didn't
to
read.
no, you try to hide that part.
I
You
did
try to hide
not.
that part. Yes,
Oh
you
my!
did.
You know what? I'm not
Because
going
you're
to
so
be made out to be a liar. I said Josephus. Matter of fact, I don't have to lie. I'm gonna entertain you one more second because I don't like to be. I don't want to say that I make it like I'm a liar. I know what I presented in my presentation, and for you to sit up here and tell me what I didn't is it's not cool. That's not cool right there.
because it seems to
Because
me, sister, that you are so desperate to be an
I
Israelite
don't
and
have to. No, you're desperate
and
because
it's
you get up
causing
here.
you
You didn't even watch my
causing you to
presentation.
lie about the Bible. It's
Now I'm
causing you to
lying.
lie. You're supposed to be a Bible follower,
All
and
right.
you're lying about the Bible. You want Africa to be Asia so bad. Why is that?
But
Why can't
you
Africa just be in Africa? Why Africa got to be in Asia? I mean, because you want to be the Israelite so bad, you gotta twist geography. You got to
mm,
change geography. So
mm,
so all of a sudden, Africa has to be Asia in order for you to be the Israelite.
Africa
You're
has
just
to be
contradicting yourself,
Asia.
sister.
I'm contradicting
You are
myself.
so desperate, and you're making yourself look bad.
Wow, you're so desperate to be ham. It's so bad. It is. You know,
I don't have to be desperate. Your Bible says I'm ham.
based off of
Look,
what again? What
look,
evidence do you have?
yeah,
What
let me
evidence do you have?
look. Here it is. Let me ask you a question. Okay.
No, let me
No,
ask you a
no,
question. You present some information right now and show me right now what information that you have to prove that you're ham. Right now, share your
oh yeah.
screen. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Because while you're getting that together, I'm getting ready to crack your face. And I can't wait till you present your information so I can see what you have. Because I just did a whole 2-hour presentation. And just for my audience, I lost a lot of people who left but it's cool. But let me share this with them. Share this with you really quick. Right here. Let me share with you guys really quick because the brother really is so desperate to be ham. Is so sad, you know, that these people
Just give me a minute. Just
tell
give me a
you
minute.
to your face that you're not, they tell you to your face that you're not them and that they're not you. So much. We got DNA, we got so much stuff. Hold on, I'm not.
Just give me a minute.
We got so much information. And for you to get up here and to tell me that my presentation, was horrible. And I'm, very patient, but let me see here. Let's see. Where is it's right there.
I'm going to share my screen. I'll share my screen.
No,
Okay.
just 1 second, because I gotta share mine. I gotta let you know. You said I didn't present some stuff, so let me share what I got, and then you're gonna share what you got. I'm not gonna be long, but I'm getting ready to hit some. There we go. make sure you can see. Okay. Now, he says, I'm pulling up some stuff really quick for you guys. Right here, Josephus and the Antiquity of the Jews. I told you guys that Ham possessed the land of Syria, Amanus, and Lebanus, which is Lebanon. He said I didn't do that. He just got cracked. I did. I told you where Ham's land was. It also told you that he stole land within Africa. Right there. Also, he said that I didn't provide any information about us being Shemites. Right there again, Josephus says that the name of Africa is named after who? It's named after his grandson. Okay. He wants to ignore that, I'm sure. Also, the Solomonic dynasty was formulated in where? In Africa. Okay, right there. The kingdom of Abyssinia was said to have been the creators. The sub-Saharan Africans are the creators of the Ge'ez script, which is what the Ethiopian Bible is written in. Okay. Also, the Zimbabweans, also the South Africans, the Limba say they are the lost tribe of Israel. The Igbo Jews say they go back to the lost tribe of Israel. When you look here at the Somalians, they tell you that they're Cushites. But when you look here at the rest of these Bantu, they don't say that. The E1B1A DNA B goes to the Hamites. There's something called a Hamitic haplogroup. I presented that with you guys tonight right there. The Hamitic haplogroup is E1B1B. We do not possess E1B1B. They say the Cushites have E1B1B. They say the Canaanites have E1B1B. And they say the Europeans have E1B1B. All right. I also provided information that showcased that the first civilization, which were the Minoans, were indeed Philistines right there. So the Caucasians come in an array of colors from from what they consider to be blonde hair, blue eyes, all the way down to the Horn of Africa, which are the who? East Africans. So I don't know what more information you need for me to provide to you that these people are not our people. You just don't want to believe it, okay? Now let's see what you got really quickly.
Yeah, okay.
Before we end this, because this is going to be over. Go ahead and present your screen. Let's see what you got.
Okay. All right, can you see that?
Go ahead.
Okay, let me blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hold on. Let me see here. Okay. Now, it says here, Josephus, okay, Josephus Flavius, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, 130. And it says, the children of Ham possessed the land from Syria and Amanus in the mountains of Libanus, seasoned upon all that was on its sea coast, and as far as the ocean, and keeping it as their own. Some indeed of its names are utterly vanished away, others of them being changed, and another sound given them are hardly to be discovered. Yet a few there are which have kept their denominations entire. For the four sons of Ham, time has not at all hurt the name of Cush or Cush. For the Ethiopians over whom he reigned are even this day, both by themselves and by all men in Asia, called Cushites. The memory also of the Mithrites, which is preserved in their name, for all we who inhabit this country of Judea, called Egypt, Mestri, and the Egyptians, Mestrians. Foot was also the founder of Libya, and called the inhabitants Footites from himself. There is also a river in the country of the Moors, which bear that name, whence it is that we may see the greatest part of the Grecian historiographers mention that river and adjoining the country by the appellation of Foot. But the name it has now been by change given it from one of the sons of Mizraim, who was called Libyos. Okay, okay, and it says, let's see here, yeah, and it says, we will inform you presently what has been the occasion why it has been called Africa also. Okay, okay, now and let me go here. Okay, let me see here. Okay, well, okay, where is it? Yeah, so we just learned from that passage that Ham, okay, but let me read this first. It says, as for the, okay, yeah, and it says, now all the children, I'll highlight it for you, okay. Now all the children of Mizraim, being 8 in number, possessed the country from Gaza to Egypt, though it retained the name of one only, the Philistine, for the Greeks called that part of the country Palestine. As for the rest, Lodim and Amin and Labim, who alone inhabited Libya.
No.
Inhabited
What did
Libya.
it say?
You gotta let me finish.
It says the Philistines are the who? The Palestinians. Haven't I been saying?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. You gotta let me finish.
All you're doing is confirming. I just read. You just read what I
look,
just.
then it says in the bottom, as for the rest, Ludim and Amin and Labim, who alone inhabited Libya. Okay, so he's telling you here that the sons of Mizraim, that the continent of Africa, okay, the old name Libya was founded by the sons of Mizraim.
The whole continent of Africa. That's not what it said. It says who alone inhabited Libya, and I talk about Libya.
Libya. Sister, do you know that that Africa was called Libya before it was called Africa?
Yes, actually, they said that. The Israelites came in and named it that, and then eventually the Canaanites came in and furthered in and took over the land.
Okay,
I'm very aware of that. I have actually just talked about how the Phoenicians came in. I literally, everything you just read confirmed everything I just said. I just read Josephus, who said Libanus. Now, I didn't say Lebanon, but that's the word. Lebanon is Libanus. Amanus is Turkey, and Syria is where Syria is, Iraq, Iran. What did I not say? I told you that Put is Libya. I said that, and hold on. I said that the Philistines were the Palestinians. I said that. Why don't you want to give me no credit, brother? Now I'm offended. No. Now I have to say I'm offended because everything you just read is what I presented. And then you said my presentation was horrible.
Can you see that?
No. You can have a good day. I'm done with you. You'll never be up here again. Hello, guys. All right, guys. You see how the brother just presented everything I said? Hey, Weezy. Agent of Chaos for sure. Please go away. Yes, he won't be back. You see, I try to be give people the thank you, Notorious Hebrew. Hit the like button for your sister, guys. You know it's hard out here. But like you said, Weezy. Oh, shalom to you. Most high blessed to you, Weezy. You said, well done, sis. Septuagint math. Now, listen. Now, you saw that, right, guys? You saw I did a whole presentation, and the man said I didn't present any of that information. And this time, I did kick you off, Pharaoh Mizraim. I did kick you off. I sure did, because that one, he's been on my show now. Ever since I went live, I didn't let him come up. He said my presentation was horrible. And then he had the audacity to read every single thing I've just said. I said the Palestinians were the Philistines. I said that the Hamites inhabited Libanus, which is Lebanon. I already said that. And then I came back and I said it again. And I told you guys that the Philistines were the Minoans. I even gave you even more. But guys, what that was just an example of how people. You said phenomenal job dealing with the moron. You said you didn't get a notification. Oh dang! I got to get back on to coming live. So they you said I ran. You know what, guys? Why don't you guys time him out in the comments? Time him out. Time him out for me, guys. Okay. But you said phenomenal job dealing with a moron. Yeah. He said I ran. I ran from what? From you confirming everything I said? From you confirming everything I said? Like I said to you guys, though, a lot of our people, you said thank you for that. Hey, some people you can't, you give them, you saw how he confirmed everything I said, right? What more? I mean, some of our people just don't want these people. They, I don't know what's in it. I don't know what his mom is. I don't know what your wife is. I don't know what your children, your brother's kids. We got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of our people have dated outside their race. A lot of our people have friends that are these different people. And then another thing is cultural appropriation. We are appropriating their culture. They tell you that we're not them. What'd you say? You said crack kills. Hey, I ain't saying it, but hey, I will laugh, right? You said they may not. They're not. They're not, and it's okay. That just because there still are Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They tell us that they're not our people. Genetics tell us that they're not our people. History tell us that they enslaved us. They sold us. They are using us for our resources. They are conspiring against us. They want us to serve them. Right now, they're on the brinks of being eliminated from this country, escorted out of this country, and they want us to fight for them. They only want to come to us when they want us to fight for them. So, hey, he tells me that I'm the one who's running away. I am running away. I did. I ran far away because he's a liar. You need a wrench? You need a wrench? I'm a mechanic for these people, and they know we're not the same. Yeah, they know it. They know it. Rise of the Israelites. It's funny how these people don't research, but always want to debate everything that Queen Naphtali researched. It really is. You see how he was up her stuttering. The spirit stirs in a whirlwind, and they bring the wind to disturb our ears. They don't want us to, I'm going to be doing a debate. I'm actually going to be, you brought the receipts. I just did a whole presentation on this. And one thing about it is that you're not going to get me. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get me, especially on something I know. Okay? All he did was get up here and confirm everything I said. Oh, Palestine is Philistines. Yeah. They were in Lebanon. Uh-huh. They were, okay. Your point? Again, the stutter. Exactly. What's your point? What do you have? That's the best you have? That's it? I gave you opportunity to share your screen and you come up with something that I already presented. All you did was just take notes from what I gave you. Yes, he should be ashamed. I love the lessons, and I'm so thankful for you taking the time out of your life to share this. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. As always, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave you all. I know some of you guys been with me for a while. I thank you all so much for tuning in. I will be coming back with a part 2. Oh, and like I was saying, thank you so much, Septuagint Maccabees and Just Tia, for the donations. You said what? Next thing you know, he'll be saying the Khazarians are the real chosen. He probably will be. You said, thank you so much. Thank you. Great presentation, the people powered information system. Yes, guys, let's try to help a sister out. Like I said, I'm going to be coming back again with part 2. If there's anything that you think I need to bring out, make sure you leave it down in the chat. What you think I should talk about more? What more information you think? What do you think I need to do to try to reach? I can't reach that guy there. He doesn't want to be reached. How do you see the channel going forward? What do you think I need to do to help? Because I'm trying to build, I'm trying to build up the platform, trying to get to 4,000. If you guys can help your sister out like you are now. Again, if you all can, send your sister a Cash App, ADUIC 777. Again, I thank you all so much for all your love, support. Shalom and Most High bless.